Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Unified Proving Ground Circuit. Shasty joined here with Smats yet again, but this time we got ourselves a new guest coming up, a new challenger to the ring. Miko, how's it going, man?
Hello, yeah, excited to see some collegiate matches. I typically see this in a different setting than amateur tournaments, but you know, it's still exciting nonetheless.
I love to hear that. And look, man, we got on the master of the collegiate looking over to see what he possibly can see in collegiate. Has been working in it for quite a bit of time. Miko, like you were talking about, this is a collegiate matchup. I want to go ahead and pick your thoughts right off the get-go. We got UCI, we got Bay State. How are you feeling going in between these two teams?
So I'm more familiar with UCI just because I spent an entire year competing in the West Coast last year under ASU, and they were our frequent scrim partners. And the strength that UCI has is that they're very good at setting up level ones. So they're a very deadly team from, let's say, 0 minutes to all the way up until 4 to 5 minutes. So they play around Duangpo really well. He tries to go for really aggressive, really creative in some ways. Pathing that either gets him a huge jungle lead or gets his laners really ahead, and sometimes both. But their weakness lies in the fact that they kind of get lost in the mid game. They rely on their early creativity and their lead that comes out of it to get really huge team fight wins, and then that usually solidifies them their typical wins. But if they don't get that early lead, then that's when they start to suffer.
And on the flip side, they do have a opponent that likes to flip things from time to time. We got Bay State, who are coming in here, and they're a team that we have seen to be ever so unpredictable at times.
Yeah, I think sometimes unpredictable to themselves a little bit as well. I think sometimes they have been known to outplay their own players. But one thing is for certain with this team is that they all are very mechanically skilled. They have all placed really, really highly on the solo queue ladder, for instance, in the last season. It's one of the reasons why they were seeded so highly in this tournament to begin with. And I've been really impressed by their individual outplays so far. Although they did take a 0-2 loss in the first best of 3 in this tournament, I think they should be able to bounce back pretty well. They should be able to have some translate those outplays into this game on top of it. I think specifically they're going to need to have that happen in the top lane and the mid lane. I think both of these guys will need to outlane those opponents so that, like Miko was saying, they can shut down the jungle priority that Duangpo typically does get from those two players.
I'd love to see how exactly they do with that, but some interesting things. I want to go ahead and get into one thing that's very interesting for all of us here. UCI is going to have to play with a couple substitute players, right? This is not going to be the standard UCI roster, so I want to go ahead and start off by bringing that discussion, and how does that affect UCI going into this matchup against Bay State? Miko, if you would, start us off.
Probably the most noticeable player in their roster is their support Kimdown. He has a different name, Oil Nam, where he used that account and was probably the highest rated support player that was not a professional LCS player in the solo queue ladder for a really long time. Granted that a lot of them were out of the region and things like that, but he's a grinder and he understands the game at a high level. So, and he's not necessarily somebody that you would look for in the laning phase. He's not really excelling in that part, but he always does one thing, or he gets that clutch engage for UCI that they're so reliant of, because again, they're a team that loves grouping and they're a team that loves skirmishing. If they get a really clear trigger from Kimdown, then that's going to give them a really huge lead or give them a really favorable fight. Unfortunately, he's not going to be able to provide that, so it'll be quite interesting seeing how UCI reacts and adapts to this change.
Yeah, the support player definitely is going to be a pretty big impact. I fully agree with you. And for this matchup in specific, we actually saw a little bit of a sneak peek just yesterday on the Nerd3 channel. These two teams did play against each other with the same roster for UCI. A-State actually did win that matchup, and that's not something that I expected to happen with the regular roster, so maybe that actually is going to be impactful enough for Bay State to be favored in this matchup. Although I'm going to stick with my guns. I'm going to stay with UCI because that's what I predicted from the get-go, but it could definitely throw a wrench in that.
Yeah, talking about throwing a wrench in things, I feel like we do, after talking about these substitute players that are coming in a role that there is no substitutes, I want to focus down onto this mid lane role, because I feel like we have some very interesting things. I feel like Serenok always kind of puts himself into a conversation, just because he's this crazy mage player that tends to is very mechanically solid, as you were introducing them as Mats. And I want to bring up the fact that we look at these two, it could be a very interesting throwdown.
Yeah, I think the champion pool and comfort specifically is going to be pretty different. Serenok playing those mages, and I'm particularly impressed by Cinnamon Bread on the melee champions like Set and Galio. He's a really solid enabler, and that is reflected by the way that they play through jungle, through Dong Pro as well. I think it's going to be pretty interesting to see if there are like any really big mid lane bans, because I think both of these guys just have such different pools that they won't really have a lot of overlap in those bans. So it'll be a bit interesting when it comes to the draft for sure.
It'll be interesting to see as well. And I gotta ask you real quick, Miko, since you've been up on UCI, how you feel about Cinnamon Bread? All right, he is a player that everybody hypes up, and he's also the kryptonite of Golden Guardians, as we're seeing that it continues to be. It takes at least one game off of them every single time they meet an amateur. How do you feel about this player over there in the mid lane?
He's the type of player that you really get thrown off of, because he would roam or make plays on situations people traditionally would not make. And that is the reason why a lot of academy teams suffered when they were entering amateur for the first time last year in Proving Grounds similarly, because these teams are willing to take risks that traditionally won't be taken by the teams of a higher caliber. Not saying that they are an inferior team to Bay State by any means, but that is something that they have to their advantage, and that is something that you really want to see from a champion that plays the player that plays a lot of melee champions, because typically mages are going to be the ones that are stronger later. They have longer range, they typically have more damage. As a result, you need to create events, you need to create just spontaneity in games as a Cinnamon Bread. So hopefully they're able to do that.
Absolutely. So I do want to go ahead and take a moment to see the caster predictions real quick, just to kind of show where everybody else is at here. And you can see that a lot of people are more so on the UCI. Not sure if they know about the subs just yet there, but could be an interesting thing here. Only a couple people on that hype train. That's
the thing. But at least for me, is that if this was any other team than Bay State, the Nerd Street games will actually have so much more impact for me. But Bay State is one of the most inconsistent teams out there, just because one, their heavy emphasis in team fighting, and they heavily rely on their bot lane Sage to pump out damage. But there are occasional moments where that player plays frontline, where he he probably has some sort of identity disorder, and then forgets he's a frontline for a second, and then he just dies, and then they all of a sudden lose that fight. So it will be really reliant on them to just perform like that, because he's typically a really individually reliant jungle focused player. But if he is sacking and then you're investing resources into Sage, then he better yield results.
I like it. We'll see how the volatility will come out, but we do have something exciting, and that is the game getting ready to go underway. So our beautiful casters are going to take it on away.
Thank you so much, Travis E. Smacks and Miko. And again, a killer desk to set us up for what is going to be a killer series, Dude. There's a lot of tension between these two, Bay State and UCI. I've been at each other's throats for a while now, and as Miko mentioned, this matchup could very well go either way. We could see Bay State show up in full form, but we already know that UCI will be right there to knock them down if Bay State are not as ready today.
Exactly. These two having gone to blows just yesterday, so there's a lot of rivalry already between the two of them. Went to 3 games, so I imagine we see the same thing once again here tonight. Of course, this is an elimination match as well for these two teams. The loser goes home, is knocked out of the Proving Ground Circuit qualifier. So if you do lose here, that is unfortunately it. This best of 3 decides your fate, whether you get to battle it off for the second seed or whether your run ends right now. Draft underway though, dear. Immediately banned away into Xerath.
Yeah, highest stakes in League of Legends right now as we get underway in this draft. I'm curious whether Bay State repeats some of the strategies that have benefited them in the past, taking junglers away from UCI. I know Miko was talking a lot about how UCI very much rely on their jungler in the early creative pathing to get them some advantages, but if you remove things that he's most comfortable on, specifically that Trundle, but even taking away things like the Nidalee, are forcing him into picks that a relatively small champion pool so far has shown us you can really push all of UCI out of their comfort zone in a detrimental way.
Yeah, and I think that Dwong Pro's champion pool is maybe something that could potentially be exploited a little bit as well. We talked about the Trundle, the Nidalee you mentioned as well, something that we got to see crop up a little bit yesterday. But also things like the Graves as well, I know that you've mentioned, certainly an option for him. So there's certainly this difference in champion pool between sort of the meta and what Dwong Pro is looking to try and put out there. So we may see the Xin Zhao and Jarvan not return to the meta, but maybe that feels a little bit disingenuous to the identity, and that's always something that I'm not too fond of. Would love to see players just stick to what they're good with, but I'm always open to being proved wrong. Obviously, make sure that you're getting those improvements, the evolution of a player, as we touched on for Strongfist in just the last series, something that I'm always down for.
Yeah, and with that, I think that it's important that we nurture some players that aren't getting as much attention as well, because I predicted UCI for a reason. I have a lot to say about them, and I'm gonna balance, but I'm gonna go ahead and throw at least one more point over towards UCI, and that is that they have Barrick on their team. The bot side has changed, but for a team that has been traditionally a lot more top-centric, at least early on, Barrick provides a level of stability in a different way than most top laners do. A lot of top laners can either split push or they can peel for you. Barrick loves to have a champion that can split push, but use them for disruption in team fights. It is unexpected, and it is drawing a Tryndamere ban right now for good reason.
Wow, okay, yeah, so this is a flex ban, but equally, we've got very little AD carry priority here, and that's something that I expect to see immediately lapped up for in our first couple of picks here. Caitlyn coming through, which immediately increases the priority on Lux, and already, if we end up getting that bot lane through, you get to see that this is going to be a pretty different take for UCI with this new bot lane coming on through. Their ability to really find aggressive action down in that bot lane, secure those plates. Something that I'm looking for. The Ezreal response here for Sophis Sage is maybe not the response I was looking for. Jinx and Aphelios up on the table. Potential to match carry with, or hyper carry with hyper carry here. And Ezreal, whilst a hyper carry in a different sense, that early game certainly going to be fairly susceptible to danger unless you take that Lux away. And this is a bot lane duo which makes that Ezreal now a lot better in my eyes, because whilst Caitlyn Lux have that synergy between the snare and the binding and then the trap coming through, Ezreal and Lux have this synergy of just an abundance of range. You don't actually have to get in range of any traps on Ezreal to be pumping out an insane amount of damage onto a rooted target.
That's the hope for Bay State, right? I like actually the way that UCI had set them up for this as well, forcing Bay State to show something different in that Ezreal Lux that should be just as successful as their strategies past, but most notably into Caitlyn, they've preferred to take that Jhin Karma, both of which were banned away by UCI, and now getting a Graves and a Victor picked up for UCI as well. There's no secret where this Victor is going. The Graves, however, remains a flex.
Yeah, as we mentioned, Dwong Pro not immune to taking this Graves into the jungle. I was going to mention that this Lux could potentially be a flex into the mid lane to try and deal with this Victor, because that's actually a fairly okay matchup for Lux, but it turns out that Corky's just going to go there. We're going to get the boilerplate season 12.1 mid lane, and now we actually have some topside prio to really deal with. I imagine Bay State going to opt toward, well, I was imagining they were going to opt towards support bans, but it turns out that is entirely incorrect, and going to take themselves toward the Viego. Of course, UCI on the other side of things, they have this top/jungle flex pick right now, so they can target their bans at both of those roles, specifically getting rid of some really bad matchups for Graves in whiclever role they fancy putting him in.
It should ban Trundle next if they want to continue with this. They've already taken away that Viego. They can force you onto a Nidalee here, or perhaps you try and take that away since everybody's so squishy on Bay State, but it really is going to be about whittling down the jungle pool and maybe even forcing UCI onto something like the Graves. We'll see which sort of direction they choose to go in. The one thing that we have assured is that Bay State are going to have damage, and they end up choosing to eliminate another threat, Barracks Darius, that was, again, terrifying in times past, now was no longer an option for the top side.
And I like this ban, honestly. It gives you the opportunity as well to play something incredibly safe in that top lane, because Darius known to be a very strong tank killer with those 5 hemorrhage stacks, and if you're able to then focus down on this bot side, you can keep something fairly isolated up in the top lane. Jack's the final ban for UCI, and now they should just, the obvious issue that they're coming into right now is that they don't know what they're blinding for. They're either picking into a Graves or picking into picking into a Graves in the jungle, a Graves in the top lane. And Dia, we were talking about this Gnar pick before, and saying that Bejani may be the only Gnar player that we've got in this tournament that's actively picking it on this patch.
And while I understand it from a theoretical perspective, it makes sense that people aren't really playing Gnar right now. I'm glad that Bejani is, because his Gnar is really, really good, and it's not good in the way that you typically think of Gnar as being able to split push really well. He's a great team fighter, and alongside that, UCI are going to pick up another great team fighter, showing us something new in the jungle, the Amumu, and pushing that Graves up to the top side, or you think not?
Support Amumu. This is the play versus a Lux Ezreal. I'm just saying it's a consideration.
Okay.
They've still got the opportunity to flex it here, so we'll hold it. Final pick will tell us everything.
This last piece will push everything together. A Wukong gets locked in, and all right, just break this down for me. Bay State, they're gonna lock something in here. The Lee Sin I really like, actually, but UCI's composition is really the mystery.
It's team fight right now. They've got the Amumu down in the support
role, but
Wukong, they do, dear. Wukong, Victor, and a Caitlyn. I mean, literally every single pick on UCI's composition just screams team fight at me, honestly. They've still got this potential to really win out on that bot side matchup. Caitlyn, again, incredibly strong with that range in the laning phase. There's a reason that she's been banned away so frequently in our games in the PGCQ. And obviously with the Amumu, now you have that capability to dive on forward. The double stuns coming through from Amumu in the with his recent changes. You get 2 wind-ups off those bandage toss, meaning you miss one. Hey, I've got another one locked and ready to go. Also worth mentioning here, Beric gets his hands on Wukong, a notorious counterpick to the Gnar in the top lane. So we'll be feeling very confident up there. The Graves into the Lee Sin matchup, something that Dragon Kim has opted into, but Graves is an early game skirmisher, doesn't particularly slouch. And looking at this matchup from the laning perspective, particularly top side, bot side, in the mid lane as well, UCI have got pretty much all the pieces they need to facilitate Duongpro in this early stage, and that is the compositional style that they love to go for. Force waves in, Duongpro invades and puts whoever the enemy jungler is in a rough spot.
I mean, it's really nice for them, and clearly their focus is there. The Graves has betrayed them in this tournament in the past, and yet it doesn't have the chance to shine right here, right now. Bay State, on the other hand, well, we're talking about UCI being able to gather around their own win condition. How do you feel they've set themselves up? Because so often, Bay State try and draft a composition that gives Sophist Sage the chance to succeed. Serenok as sort of a secondary insurance win condition, and while I can see that in the Corki, I'm still not sure about how this Ezreal Lux has really worked out.
This is pretty much a stock start. This is a response that we saw from Golden Guardians as well in their first game, where they had this Ezreal Corki duo as their carry. So we've already seen the powerhouse that it can provide. I think we actually saw them in different games. But either way, the fact that this Ezreal can be that leading source of input that they can facilitate gold into is sort of the hope, hopefully, for Bay State. If they don't get this Ezreal off to the races here, then they could really be in a rough position. Want to talk about the support matchup as well, because Brain has a really tough time right now. Going warding as it looks incredibly scary if you don't have A lead, or B jungle support here, because Dragon Kim and Brainy need to be paired up together at the hip if they want to make some picks happen, some plays with vision as well. Certainly very respectable, certainly very doable with this duo. The CC chain can come through, and there's plenty of damage between these two in a jungle support setting. But I'm certainly going to be curious to see what Brainy can do, and particularly what Dragon Kim's able to, whether or not facilitating Sophie's stage can happen, as traditionally, once again, that has been their identity.
Yeah, I mean, I've come to fear Dragon's Lee Sin. So if we can get that very scary power in towards the bot side, I see the dream happening right in front of us. And certainly, well, the Lux may have a difficult time warding. She has an easy time lasering you from a million units away. So there's always that dream to come through. But as Miko pointed out, and as our desk talked about, it is going to be a large focus on whether UCI can really put the screws to Bay State early on and put themselves in a big enough lead that they don't have to worry about the mid game, because mid game is where they have traditionally faltered and where Bay State are going to start to get their wheels going. Whether or not Ezreal and Corki are minorly behind will very quickly be erased in that 15 to 25 minute range where they can collect farm from around the map, and as long as they can stall out against UCI, reach a point where they are doing so much damage.
And once again, the beauty of these two marksmen for Bay State is their build paths as well. They have got traditionally cheaper build paths here, with Mana Moon costing significantly less than a Mythic, that tending to be the first item for both of these two. Essence Reaver as well, a fairly cheap item for Sophist on this Ezreal. So even if they are a little bit down in gold in the early stages, if UCI are able to facilitate a little bit of a lead, getting to those first item breakpoints, you can see fairly frequently Sahori potentially being, components. We've got Gale Force of Noon Quiver plus Pickaxe, where Sophist has taken a reset and he comes back to lane with Mana Moon. Starting out with the longsword as well for both of these two down in the bot side means that they are very prone to take some engages with 450 expendable health in those potions. There is plenty of dueling power between the bot lanes.
This is going to be one that we'll keep our eyes on, see if any of those early First Bloods go down in the 2v2. While I was seeing this 5-man move towards the bot side from UCI, an attempt perhaps at getting their game going early, one of the things that stood out to me as I looked across the champions is the fact that UCI have, of course, the hard engage of a Mumu, but looking across the Rift, Bay State don't have that same luxury. In fact, they have very little straight up hard engage, even with somebody like a Gnar that can be really nice in a fight. Actually starting a fight seems to be where Bay State could falter.
They have an incredibly good pick composition, right? We talked about the pairing up of Brainy with Dragon Kim. If they can get that ball rolling and find somebody isolated, that's certainly a route to success for Bay State as well. That's the sort of lead that they're going to be hoping to take an avenue through. And again, as Miko touched on the desk, has to be mentioned, UCI incredibly early on, trying to find that advantage. Duong Pro forces his bot lane to come with him. They take away a blue buff, and nice and easily done. That's a free buff, hopefully, over to the Graves.
If you're a UCI fan, you've seen this before, and it is painful to watch. Having a little bit of tracking, though, Bay State will at least know that blue buff is currently untouched, and Dragon can try and respond in kind. Looking down towards this bot side, though, I'm already seeing what you're talking about, Rudu. The range of this Ezreal Lux is going to be very, very annoying.
Exactly. Mystic Shot plus Lucent Singularity, a definitely fairly daunting prospect to try and lane up against. Duong Pro already here, and you can see Dragon Min nowhere to respond.
He's got no red buff, though, so the slows that the Graves traditionally provides not there, but Sophist Sage, without the traditional slipperiness of the Ezreal, just sort of melts. He's gone.
And now the jig is up, but unfortunately Dragon Min already down on this bot side of the map. He's going to have to traverse cross-country if he wants to try and cross-map his blue buff take. Could also go for this invade. Has got a little bit of mid-prio from Serenok instead. Going to start up on these Raptors and these junglers. Currently, with no information on where one another are, Dragon Min can infer from seeing Graves, but Duong Pro operating under completely no information right now.
This is a little bit spooky for him, and as he rounds the corner, he will surely know that the Raptors were gone right now, discovering it. The nice thing for him is he's got a whole nother buff to take and a top side to pay attention to. Barrack starting to be shoved in right now against this Gnar. Still does have a very squishy lane opponent, especially when Bajani reaches that mini Gnar form, and one that Graves can start to pick up a little bit more kill participation on, given that he didn't end up grabbing the kill bot side, which I think is not what UCI would have wanted.
It goes on to Sahori though, and that is by no means a bad place to be expending resources, getting your AD carry ahead. And For UCI as well, we've talked about them and particularly expecting them to focus around the mid jungle coming into this series. Obviously taking Caitlyn as a first pick, your plans tend to change because you want to facilitate this Caitlyn for success, and fortunately that's exactly what they were able to do. Triple longsword start means that just a Piltover Peacemaker will be dishing out insane amounts of DPS, and it's probably the best way to respond to the range here of this Ezreal Lux. But look at Dragon Min here taking away these Krugs. Hasn't been spotted out, and the range from Sophist and Brainy doesn't go away.
God, Sahori's taken so much damage as well with Detro mispositioning. He's going to take quite a bit of damage on the way out, and we're actually putting ourselves in a position where we could see a dive quite soon. Bay State are ready for this. They've got Dragon Min prepared in the sidelines, unspotted as of yet. A single Sonic Wave connects, and he will be looking for this dive. Already pulling the wave. It's up to Brainy and Sophist Sage to land a little bit of that CC. Detro goes forward, though, and forces the flash out of Brainy. Now low and ignited down. Sahori can't tank this for him, so it's going to have to be a minion. Dragon Min just barely whiffing on that Q, and Brainy actually might go down here. Sahori flashes for him, gets exhausted, but ends up picking up 2 kills! We were wondering about these subs, and they're already on fire!
Oh, flash from Detro as well. Wow, UCI deliver in the bot lane. Dwong Pro just taking the entire top side, does not care. The 2-for-1 down in the bot side. Sahori and Detro are going to be incredibly happy about that one. And they come out with an absolutely insane counterplay down on the bot side. Wonder, take notes. That was incredible.
That was really, really insane stuff, and for a lane that I'm sure that not only we, but Bay State had questions about, the answers have proved terrifying. Moving into the next couple minutes, the strong side, traditionally, of Sophist, Sage, and Brainy now needs even more attention, and Dragon Min has already spent so much time down there. With UCI starting to gather momentum, they too can start to make their own plays towards the southern end of the Rift, perhaps picking up a recently spawned dragon in an attempt to get that early game even further.
To add insult to injury, I suppose a little bit here for Bay State. It's not been particularly great for them. We do get to watch this one back out. Initially forcing the flash out of Brainy, obviously very impactful. But then just the heal from Sahori is actually incredibly clutch. Just baiting it gives a little bit more movement speed to Detro and just toggling at the edge of all of their ranges. Sahori going for this. Absolute madman. I respect it no end. The fact that they come away with 2 kills, truly incredible from this situation. And the kill going over to Dragon Min. Honestly, look at that. Look at that flash.
It's frame perfect. It's so beautiful.
It was the predict on the predict, right? Like, you go for the Q smite on as Dragon Min right there. You don't think anybody's going to be able to respect. He's like, okay, I've got the creeps. I'm fine. Never mind, he sees the smite come down, insta-flashes it. Beautiful stuff. And for 2 players that we had severe question marks around, not because we didn't respect them, just because we hadn't seen them play. They are definitely delivering.
A lot of very confident players in this Proving Ground circuit, I have to say. With Dragon Min's extraordinary confidence, I'm sure it has to be shaken a little bit, especially towards that bot side, and by the fact that his jungle is currently just being farmed by the enemy. Dwong Pro walks in, steals away that red buff, currently maintaining his lead that he gathered earlier, being up 10 CS, and he even picks up just a few of those Raptors, continuing the pressure UCI are laying down top side while they do well in bot lane. Where are Bay State going to find an advantage?
It looks like it won't be top lane for the time being. Bejani will be able to get away from this one fairly easily. Nimbus strike down for Beric means that he's fairly easy to... Bejani is fairly easy to get out to safety. We'll draw your attention back down to this bot lane. I know we've had a lot of focus on it for the time being, but almost double the CS right now for Sophist Sage. It doesn't mean that because all of these kills have got over that this lane all of a sudden loses all credibility. He's still down in gold by 300, but given that you died twice and the enemy AD carry has got 2-3 kills over you, this definitely could have been a lot worse. You have to give credit over to the Bay State bot lane for being able to lose so gracefully and still find themselves in a fairly decent position.
Thanks to our stats team for the visual representation. However, it's going to be UCI that give us a physical one. Barrick ready to fight, and with the Q already down from Lee Sin, no chance to pick up the Rift Herald. Everything ends up being very tense, and then all of a sudden, very, very dispersed as we move back into a resting state. I thought, oh my god, the snipe!
Disaster for UCI, honestly, where all of their gold had been focused, just falling. Certainly not where you want to lose your player. The power of this Ezreal looks exemplified.
Nice flash from Barrick, might actually keep him alive. The clone manages to save him as well. Barrick, no teleport, however, is going to have to make his way back up top and likely lose a few minions in the process, much like is happening bot side. And just in a moment, in 2 different plays across the map, all of a sudden, Bay State pull themselves into a lead. They've now got a little bit of gold in their favor, and we're going to get a chance to see how exactly this happened. Package is a wonderful thing, dude.
Yeah, special delivery for Sahori. Unfortunately, it's death. He gets taken down by the final spark. Almost manages to trade back onto Serenok, and honestly, in the spirit of this game, wouldn't have been surprised if he had been able to. There's Caitlyn and Amumu, though, as I mentioned. Whenever you pick Caitlyn, you tend to want priority, some sort of form of interaction from your jungler. Unfortunately, Dwong Pro hasn't really spent too much time down here. Looking like that may start to change, though Rift Herald in his inventory could start to give a bit of gold back to this UCI bot lane, because despite all of those kills, they're still not doing the best in it.
Now we're actually going to try and go for a gank right now. The ward that Bay State put in the central brush right outside the alcove, providing a lot of value to them. Although Dwong, not actually sure that he wants to stick around. Let's not forget, this is a jungler that likes to be strong themselves, so every second that he's putting down here is not giving him gold, and that is a real problem if you are Dwong Pro. Now spotted out by the ward. All is lost, and he'll likely take the reset soon, given that there's not a whole lot down here, with Dragon already having cleared that side of the jungle. Detro flashes forward, though, and never mind, it's going to be the end of Sophist Sage. This bot lane continues to surprise, even as the wave absolutely melts in front of Brainy. Should be allowed to survive underneath the tower. Dwong Pro maybe not so lucky, still putting in the damage, but Dragon with the kick underneath the tower lets Dwong Pro still escape over the wall, investing his own flash. Sahori flashes the Sonic Wave, but it is not going to be enough. A recently reset Dragon and picks up a kill.
True shot barrage. Is it going to find its spot?
Recall.
Oh, he moves.
How did he
Dwong
see
Pro
that?
knew.
How did he know?
Knew. Intuition, dear. High elo, challenger braining.
This guy's game sense is through the roof, and well, it's just enough to let him know that seems like he's got a little bit of company as well. Dragon Min looking for that kill, now looking for the Dragon instead, perhaps even a play in the mid lane where Senna is surprisingly low against Serenok, who's been putting out the poke time and time again. Senna wants to try and trade aggressively and has the backup of Detro, but it is a 3v2 in the favor of Bay State that ultimately will result in a disengage, and again, likely a Dragon take.
And important in these situations to look elsewhere on Summoner's Rift, right? We've had a lot of action down in the bot lane. Ultimately, not a lot in the mid and top lanes here. CS leads for UCI in the mid lane, for the top lane of Bay State. Sahori.
Exhaust, pretty crucial there. Sahori ends up just getting deleted by that very last tap from Ezreal. The Mystic Shot doing work, and now getting to do a little bit more. Strong side bot has finally come to rise, and it is terrifying. From being down 3 kills, we have now got a 2v2 kill picked up rather easily by Bay State. The Dragon to boot, and a nearly 30 CS lead for Sophist Sage.
Look at the items, though, dear. Essence Reaver completed. One item versus components is always going to be better. Sophie Sage puts that to good use here, and those points that I was talking about earlier, the cheaper build path for an Ezreal comes home to roost. Yes, we've got an 1100 gold stop off at a serrated Dirk for Sahori, but the point remains true. But Johnny, you might be fine here, but 3 people up top.
He's going to be okay. Backing off right now. Mega Gnar popped as well. Not even the top tower is really under any threat. Plenty of health left on this Gnar, Mega Gnar, whatever he may be in the next couple of minutes. With Brainy and Dragon moving up towards the north end of the Rift as well. They're going to start applying pressure to the one place where UCI have managed to maintain their strength. And UCI, losing out even further in the bot lane, are starting to get a tragic tale sung about them. as this game is just slipping out of their control, and it is just in the mid game that we spoke of at the analyst desk.
Yep, the early game certainly proved to have some rewards, but this mid-game has been very rough for UCI. As we get later and later into the game, remember that their composition teamfights exceptionally well. Victor and Mumu and Wukong as a package deal, certainly going to be very scary for any marksman, any carry, to try and battle up against. If UCI can get to that spot, there's still a chance, there's still a hope here. They're not out of this game just yet, and 2.5k gold down is by no means an insurmountable deficit, and the bounties are still present for the Bay State team. Obviously Lee Sin plus Ezreal, both with 150 gold over their heads, so Dragon, Min and Sophist are going to need to be just a little bit more cognizant of their positioning than their teammates.
And as we look towards the mid game, a lot like we were looking at Ryoma last game, we are looking at Barrick and Senna this game, and Barrick at least is getting invested in. Bajani ends up going down underneath his tower to a Cyclone to end all Cyclones, and Dwong there to pick up the kill as well. We'll be able to shove this wave in. It is all about these two though, and with Detro potentially eating quite a bit of damage soon, only level 7. Dwong also close to being engaged on right now. This may just transition into a Rift Herald fight. Cinna, I believe, quite ready to hyper carry this one just yet. Barrick freshly out of ultimates, and UCI maybe biting off a lot more than they could chew, especially when we consider that Serenok is here with the package. Waiting on this one, poking everybody out, putting UCI in a weak position as Dragonman lands another Sonic Wave on the wall. Bay State have a numbers advantage. They have a cooldown advantage. They have every advantage. Surely they win this fight.
Rift Herald reset, here goes the package.
Package already invested, and now Dwong under a lot of fire is going to end up going down. It is Sophist Sage to pick up the first kill though onto Detro, and 3-4 quick kills fall in the favor of Bay State. We knew they would win it, but UCI were a little bit late on the memo, so Hori finally gets it, and he's going to retreat into the mid lane, tail between his legs.
Stop fighting on the package, everybody, please! UCI run straight on top of the red carpet of doom. Rumble Ult 2.0 is going to absolutely melt you. UCI find that out the hard way. Take another look at this. So the Rift Herald resets, and at this point UCI, they just need to leave. You're taking a fight up against Corki with package, and then Beric, Sinner, immediately straight on top of it. A beautiful kick as well, it has to be said. Layered on top. And they all get absolutely schmelted here. It is not even close. Sahori on the bottom side of the fight can never find access, as that Caitlyn needs to be set up around those objectives first to lay down those traps. But Bay State, after what was a fairly rough early game, have put themselves into a mid-game where they're looking very confident.
I mean, maybe surely they finally find something here. The pick given over to Sahori does give them at least an inkling of gold in return. Now 4,000, a little bit less behind in the econ. The Bay State still very much in the driver's seat, and with 40 seconds on this next dragon, another relatively oppressive soul. The Ocean this time around should be Bay State's. They are very close being on that soul point. Cinna, the strong point of the composition for UCI, only having gone down once right now, only having that singular item, but with 150 CS, the most on his team right now, needs to be the Rock.
And I wonder if he's got his second augment upgrade. With no assists at the minute, relies on his quantity of cannon minions taken as to whether or not that second augment has been picked up. The mobility from the upgraded Q definitely very palpable in terms of mobility. So will be a nice advantage, or a nice sort of take for Sinner if he had it. Now Bay State looking to siege in this mid lane. Good poke chip down by the Rift Herald, but this turret still standing strong. With Dragon alive, Bay State's attention has been turned toward the Ocean.
Again, cooldowns in the favor of Bay State. However, Detro doesn't have the Curse of the Sad Mummy yet to lock down everybody, and it means Bay State just end up picking up a free dragon. A little bit of poke on the exit from the ace in the hole, but when that is the commitment from UCI, it is a harrowing sight to see as UCI even get poked out from a million units away. They actually have to leave the mid lane.
Yeah, they were going to try and trade the turret in the mid lane, but fortunately Bay State playing this one to a T. They're using mid lane priority, using the Rift Herald to force it. Go in, collect the Drake, and within the 30-second timing for the creeps, able to work their way all the way back round to the mid lane, and now should be able to claim this mid-tier 1 for themselves. The long-range poke of Ezreal plus Lux has been able to force them this advantage, force them the health pool total, sending 3 members back to base. And you can see, yes, Sahori's in the mid lane, but he's in no position to step up to defend this turret. Bay State, they've taken this mid game by the horns and are doing a very good job.
It looks like we know which Bay State is showing up today, is what I'm going to say after the first 18 minutes of the game. UCI, make no mistake, have ways to claw back into this, but this is not going to be the game that it could have, where UCI took the bull by the horns from minute 1 and just continued to ride it all the way to a glorious end. Bay State are going to make this difficult, and it might just come down to those late game fights if Bay State even let it get there, because make no mistake, at this point, it is about what Bay State allowed to happen and about what UCI can get away with in that time.
These are where your slight concerns about the draft, though, dear, do start to come to fruition. Obviously, Bay State here, they do need to make sure that they can continually find these engages and put them in a really nice spot to keep that lead going. And as you can see on your screen right here, who is the player that you're afraid of in this tournament? Asked to Sinner, the UCI mid laner. His answer, Serenok, the Bay State mid laner that he's currently playing up against.
And that is really, honestly, quite fitting to see right now. Senna definitely paying a lot of respect over to the Bay State roster and to the mid laner that has challenged him in particular. Serenok, another rock of his own team, but in this particular game, hasn't been highlighted just yet. A package over by the Rift Herald is pretty darn cool, but the Battle of the Titans that happens in these mid-games from these mid-laners is really amazing to watch. As we approach these next couple team fights, we'll be keeping our eyes on these two. Serenok and Senna are really going to be the cornerstones through which their teams either succeed or fail.
And I'm always going to give Victor a chance in a late game team fight. This guy is pick ban for me for a reason. Quick catch on to Detro, but probably the one target that you don't want to be hitting with a binding. Even Shroud finished up for Detro, so whoever gets hit by that bandage toss.
Oh wow, this guy's just dead actually. Holy moly, Dragon Min. It lands another Sonic Wave, and you know as Dwong that your life is over. Now 1, 2, and 3 on the grades that ended up helping us draw first blood. How the mighty have fallen. This Graves not doing him any favors for right now. Barrack, however, trying to turn things around on Serenok, was waiting in the brush, a level down in the side lane at the moment, and side laning against Corki has not been a fun time historically. Serenok gets to continue poking you down, whittling away at your tower. He's got plenty of vision in the jungle to back him up in the form of living wards.
Yes. But the side laning against just Corki right there, that's all that's going on right here.
Yeah.
Serenok is totally alone down here without the support of jungler, a support per chance, making it fairly difficult. Obviously, we've touched on this time and time again, but for UCI, their win condition comes from finding engages, and Bay State's comes from keeping them at range. If they can use the Corki rockets, use this poke composition of Brain plus Sophist Sage, certainly should be a win for Bay State if they can continue to close out this game. But it's worth noting that in their matches up against Wildcard, they found themselves in similar positions and ultimately lost that series 2-0 due to an inability to close out games. Issues around the Baron certainly plagued them in that matchup. Let's see if those changes have been able to come through, those adaptations from week to week are going to let them in. For now, Baron shouldn't really be the focus. We've got Ocean Soul spawning in about 30 seconds. And for the time being, it is going to be UCI who work their way down to the bot side and potentially trying to claim control of the river. But Serenok, he's got the package. He's got that team fight utility ready and raring to go. As Dwong Pro looking to try and catch out Bay State.
I mean, you say stop fighting around the package, but we've simply got no choice right now. Dragon Min taking a little under a quarter of his HP. It just jumps with Serenok right onto Detro. However, it's Serenok that goes down first, crucially mispositioning in the front lines. First pick of the fight ends up going over to Bay State as they end up slamming 2 more into the wall with Bajani picking up a third. This team fight is truly done. Even after losing Serenok, Bay State make a miraculous recovery, and it's just because they had so much gold to work with. The advantages were spread so far that losing Serenok was just one piece of the puzzle.
Ocean Soul will now be their reward, and the game becomes a ton easier when you've got this Soul working overtime for you, particularly in this composition that works by whittling you down over time here. You know, the Wukong engage plus the Victor, it's a lot of consistent, sustained DPS that the Ocean Soul is going to be working very well against. Don't need to keep your eyes on the minimap for a second here. Sahori, not a part of this fight, and that is a real kicker for UCI right here. Beric does such a good job at stalling the front line. Triple knockup after triple knockup, keeps them safe. But it's Bejani's engage that comes on through and sets them up for success. And now, Sahori fires his first auto attack in the fight when he's already lost 3 members, dear. It's too little, it's too late, and UCI now have a mountain to climb to get back into this game.
Triple Gnar into the wall, by the way, is exactly why we hyped up Bejani at the beginning. The fact that he plays this Gnar and plays it so well inside of the team fights is on display for all to see right there and then. Bay State still in a commanding position. This game has become even better. Just a little under a 10,000 gold lead right now, and making their way there, especially if they can pick up this Baron, which should, by all accounts, be relatively simple for them. Team fights are something they can take with ease, with confidence. UCI still have a lot more resources to gather. We keep returning to this Victor, but the game state has barely changed for him since we touched on it last.
And there's an art here to taking this Baron for Bay State without too much committal. Sophie Sage can continually fire Mystic shots, but you'll notice that Brain plus Serenok are not going to be expending long-range resources for it. The Baron's already gone. Can Beric find a pick?
Hopefully they can find Brainy, but the flash of the wall, the fact that Beric is already basically dead, is going to spell the end of that fight again. Sahori split completely from the rest of the team, has to get away from Bejani as Dragon Min continues to chase down Detro and Duong. It's a matter of time before the kills go down, but Serenok, oh my lord, almost extends too far again, does end up going down from the opposite side of the fight. Detro does find a pick, and some of the Barons are taken away, but Bay State, in large part, are safe because Sophist and Bejani, a front line and a back line in 2 different people, but complete story nonetheless, are going to be able to break the base.
Inhibitor turret should be taken down here despite the numbers advantage for UCI. The health pool totals in favour of Bay State. They do break open the inhibitor turret. No inhibitor taken just yet. That is going to be more than enough to warrant Bay State forcing themselves back to base here. And the beauty right now of this Baron is their timer on it is going to give them just enough time to maybe break open the inhibitor, break open another inhibitor turret perchance, and then work their way right back into the bot side of Bay State, UCI's jungle, and work toward that Elder Dragon. If Ocean wasn't enough of a win condition, the 20% execute at 26 minutes, it'll be 30 when it spawns. That's something that you need to be fearful of. And if Sahori is not there for that fight like he hasn't been for so many others, UCI is going to crumble.
I mean, come on, Rue, dude. You said the words Elder Dragon, and I was like, oh no, they've got another thing to deal with as well. UCI, they know that this fight is far from over for them if they want a chance at winning it. But right now, it's looking like we're going to be going to game 2 with them having a lot of ground to cover. Sophist Stage completely safe in this mid lane right now. Not a care in the world. It's, again, the vision control around mid lane, around the map is just fluid for Bay State right now. They've got nothing to fear, although as Detro goes on the engage, Sophist Sage, crucially not stunned up, has plenty of time to peel back the damage. There is deletion from Cinna, however, as he ends up picking up at least the 1 kill onto Brainy. Support for support is all it's going to be at the moment. But now, no engage for UCI anymore, and, well, no mid laner either.
Be fearful of Serenok for a reason here. The advantage of support trades definitely in favour of Bay State since they have the vision established. But a 1-for-0 with the mid laners, even better.
Oh, Sahori almost going down right there. One wayward kick would have spelled his demise, but Bay State, they get what they came for. Bot lane inhibitor tower under fire and already deceased. Inhibitor now gonna go down, likely the mid lane as well, and the base will be left in shambles. Beric and Detro need to find an engage right now before Duong and Sahori, and Beric goes for it, finding the disruptions, finding the knockups, but nobody is there to help him. Bejani's coming in now, and these 4 members look so delicious. No Gnar back, but Beric still gonna go down ultimately. You can only assume Distro manages to buy him a little bit of space. Dwong finally going to go down on the back end to the Mystic shot. We pan back over to another dead support with Distro having met his end. And while Bay State may not end the game now, although they could try for it, it is looking like they've got all the time to do whatever they really want. And right now, it's playing with UCI under the towers.
Triple in here may not be the end of the game right now. Ultimately spells the end of the game within a few moments' time. Package as well here to all but seal the deal. 3 versus 5 now. Base defense for UCI. Sinner, Sahori, and Beric. What can you muster?
No ultimate for Beric means no disruption. It's a Wukong as a distraction at best, and as he gets laser beamed out of Summoner's Rift, it is happening to everyone at the kill feed swarms red. It is going to be Bay State in a convincing show for game 1 that send themselves onward with a single game advantage and a pretty good chance of knocking UCI out.
I mean, honestly, Miko just called that entire game from start to finish. UCI had a very good level 1. They generated themselves a nice advantage by taking their jungler taking Dwong Pro into the jungle, getting that nice advantage. But then 5 minutes onwards, it was Sophie Sage pumping out the back damage down on the bot side, Brain as well at his back, giving him all of the support needed to enable this Ezreal and put them in a great spot for these team fights. The Drakes were secured, we got objective after objective going the way of Bay State, and unfortunately the slightly greedier oriented style from Dwong Pro didn't warrant any results and didn't get them the leads they needed.
I tell you what, though, there is always next time. It is a best of 3 for a reason, and UCI, I know they got that swing in them. Let's see if they can bring it out in game 2, but first, we're going to take a short break.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Unified Proving Grounds Qualifier. We just got off of what was a very explosive victory coming out from the side of Bay State, and man, oh man, there was some crazy stuff going on there. That was definitely a Bay State game.
Yeah, lots of explosions. A lot of them were from Corki Package. Again, this is the third game in a row that Corki's been picked up. Please just ban this champion until Riot nerfs it. This is unacceptable. This champion is way too good. Please get rid of it.
Mutual agreement has to happen between these teams. Just no more. We won't race the ban on it. It's fine. Just nobody pick it. But it was definitely a crazy game, and it was full of a lot of different swings. One of the big things, too, is how poetic it was, really and truly, right? We got to see, at one point in time, all of the kills for UCI were on their Caitlyn, and all the kills that Bay State had were also on the Caitlyn. So it was a very interesting turn of events that we had to see inside of that game here. I believe
that was pretty cursed.
Yeah, it was cursed. It was cursed.
Like, why did he even have the top scoreboard at that point? Just look at Caitlyn's score for the early game. That's all you need.
Yeah, the top lane was an island for sure. It was so quiet up there. Like, at a certain point, I think the camera didn't go to the top lane until like 14 minutes into the game, by the way.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, it was a bit of an isolated area. Back to the island they went, but we did have some replays to be able to look at everything that did happen over there, and we do want to start it off with a very interesting clip of UCI going for a late invade that set up for some interesting plays.
So Miko mentioned it before that their level 1s are really, really creative, and this is no exception. They go for a late invade onto the enemy blue buff, not spotted out, and they get to scout out where their bot lane is by that ward that they placed off their level 1 as well in the bottom lane. So Dwang Pro gets to take this one away. They get to go directly down to bottom lane as well, since it's a double range matchup into the Amumu. And they're pushing up. Dwang Pro gets to take both of these camps and then just go kill them right after that.
Yeah, Miko, I remember over off desk, you were looking at this like, oh no, the setup's there. It's coming. The Jaws music was playing for you.
Yeah, like, we should just politely ignore a couple of the skill shots that are being missed because, we're just human after all. But it's just additionally intelligent because most likely the bot lane has communicated that the Ezreal Lux hates leashing, and typically they would like to stay in lane, get their poke out. So, like, they get that establishment of, like, just getting zone for level 2, so they could shove in that wave and then just constantly poke them on the tower. So that was something that they probably kept in mind, and knew that Lee Sin will most likely not start there. So overall, just very intelligent, and that they got a really huge lead off of that too.
Absolutely did. And we do have another thing to show here, which is something else. You were talking about, Smets, you were talking about Corki, and how Corki has been picked 3 times now. We want that mutual agreement. But there's another interesting statistic that we have a replay to show here.
Yeah. So we've had Corki in all 3 of the games, and the first Herald has not been taken by the Corki team in any of these games. Guys, Herald spawns at 8 minutes. Corki package spawns at 8 minutes. What are we doing? Well, you know what? I'll tell you what we're doing. We're going and using it on Sohori and killing him again.
Poor Sohori. He got spotted on one ward for a brief moment, and Saranak was just like, I'm going for him.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of things that we could talk about in this perspective, mainly because right before the replay, we actually saw Bay State's bot lane overstaying for 1 additional wave and then getting those last turret plates. So from that point on, Bay State should have been able to identify that they're not going to be able to capture Herald. And just because, well, Amumu's going to be getting first setup, and then Lux is not going to be face checking in the Amumu. That's just not going to happen. So if that is the case, then what they most likely should have done, and a gist of it is what we saw because of the mispositioning of the Caitlyn, but it's if they were able to catch the wave and then crash it into the enemy tower and then just threaten a dive with a Corki patch at 8 minutes, then even though they're giving up Herald, they will be able to get something very meaningful on the bot side, potentially like a lot of CS denied, even a capability of killing the Caitlyn under the tower, because we realized very soon that if you put resources into the bot lane of Bay State, they will give you the win.
I mean, we got to see that full force, and I want to talk about this Drake fight that we had inside the river. It had Corki package, Gnar flank, everything that you could possibly look for here from them, and it was a disgusting fight. And Mika, you were talking about some of the macro decisions, and we got a replay to actually walk us through it.
Yeah, I actually loved UCI's initial approach towards this. There's very few teams that actually fully commit to a bot lane push and then try to enter the dragon that way, because mid lane priority is not the only way to enter it. Of course, like there's 2 lanes that dragon's attached to. It's just people forget about the other one too often. And the issue was twofold. One was that Caitlyn was mid lane instead of Victor, who had TP, so they weren't able to unite and then just like group up in time and then just do it, or typical front to back composition where Caitlyn and Victor will be able to shine. And then the additional problem was that they also had one chance where they were able to take out DMK if they had all their CC and all their damage lost. But Victor overstayed for one additional wave because he thought that he had to crash the bot lane tower and force them to respond, which isn't necessarily true, because what you need to do is just guarantee your entrance, and just by clearing that wave, you've already done so. So especially if you get the pink wards down, then you're already like setting yourself up for success. So those 2 things didn't work out for them, but if they did, that would have been like a really impressive way to come back.
I'd agree on that. It would have been impressive, but didn't happen. Bay State took a very explosive way to go about it. We do have an end game graphic as well for us to kind of look and discuss how the end of that game played out. But I mean, I'm sure we're about to see a mountain here, Smets, in terms of the gold, because Bay State never left the gold lead, right?
Yeah, the gold is one thing, but I'm really interested to see this Ezreal damage, because it felt really high watching that game. I'm sure that's really high in the damage chart as well. Regardless, the performance from Sophos Sage was actually really, really impressive outside of the lane, because he was under fire really heavily from the get-go. We just watched that level 1 gank from the jungler as well, from Duong Pro. Came back really well. Able to get a lot of advantages. He kept the CS lead for most of that game, and I have to give a really big shout out to that guy. He was able to play this lane as if nothing crazy was happening, and we all know that that's just not the case.
Yeah, we all definitely know that. And you were talking about the damage chart. Gotta highlight it down in the bottom right of your screen there. The Corki Ezreal damage, man. That is absolutely disgusting here. Honestly, and looking at this, Miko, is there anything you're looking at? You see this in-game screen and you're like, all right, this is what you guys need to do, UCI. This is how you change yourself so you don't run into this screen again.
So I think the first thing that they should do is they should close their eyes and then not see goal difference over time. Because if I saw that as a player, then I would be also very, very sad. And I think the second thing that they should focus on is they should give themselves a little bit more agency when it comes to their mid lane pick. We talked in length about how Cinnamon Bread's advantage is revolving around those melee champions that are capable of roaming. Victor is a complete opposite case of that. So if they ever have a stylistic change, then get this guy one of his champions, and then make sure that he's able to link up with Duong Pro and give him the agency to carry the game. Because we saw from this game that the individual matchups in the bot lane is going to be really difficult, maybe in the other parts of the map as well. So they have to play collectively as a group better, or otherwise I don't see them like winning the next game.
Yeah, the big champion that we were considering when looking at the end of the draft was actually Orianna. Not even a melee champion, but just another enabler for Cinnamon Bread. I want to call him Cinnamon Bread because that was his name, but it doesn't fit in the TR because he's got a strike code. Cinna. I would have liked to see him play one of those enablers. I fully agree. It doesn't even have to be that melee champion. I think Orianna would have worked really well. Maybe even like another enchanter. That could also have been an angle, because you do have a lot of damage coming out of Duong Pro on this grave. So yeah, fully agree.
I would just, I would just like to see them have a couple more tools at their disposal, and I'm looking at the top lane, honestly, for that, right? Like, you got a Wukong, and it's hard to get Wukong to work against this comp, right, guys?
It's just really unreasonable for you to have a Wukong player in the top side of the map and also have a Caitlyn in the bot side. It's like, you're like a 40-year-old mom and there's 2 kids that are wanting your attention that are 1-year-old and 2-year-old each, and then obviously you got to choose one. But that's just a case where you have only a limited amount of resources, and the one thing that Wukong prizes himself is his level 6 spike and his capability of diving or even just 100 to 0ing any champion as long as he has backup. But it's really difficult to juggle all of these things, especially for especially for a team at not necessarily the highest levels. And the amount of coordination that is expected and required for you to pull this off is just out of this world.
All right. Well, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, our casters are ready to get into the chaos that Game 2 has in store for us. So, gentlemen, take it on away.
Once again, we return to the desk, Rude Dude, and once again, we are jumping into that Bay State versus UCI matchup. It was not, by any means, a disappointment for Game 1. However, I suspect that UCI want a little bit more out of it this time. Given they started off really well, we all saw how things could have come together, but Bay State really played that mid-game well to bring themselves back to a convincing Game 1 win.
And I think that game really exemplified the importance of an identity right there, because we saw Bay State, yes, they had a bit of a rough early game, but they knew exactly how they wanted to play out their composition, and they focused in on that. And I think that, again, Miko touched on it beautifully at the end right there, that UCI had a lot of things that they could have done and did a little bit of everything, but nothing to a point of getting themselves a coherent advantage, right? They performed one dive top lane with the Wukong. They performed one gank in the bot lane on a double range onto a double range lane that got pushed and got able to take them down, but none of it was enough to find that lead and put themselves in a 1-0 position. Coming into this one, though, I imagine, as you say, they've got a lot of bite left still to give. So game number 2, draft underway. Let's see if there are any adaptations to be made, because I think for UCI, honestly, going back to the drawing board, not too much needs to be changed, more of an execution error from game 1.
Yeah, and they've got a lot of ground to cover in terms of the games. Right now, we're going to take it one at a time, and we'll even take it one pick at a time. With UCI returning to take away that Xerath. However, Tryndamere on the other side, Bay State are going to have the first pickup, and I found myself wondering what it will be, whether they'll opt for that AD carry, picking it up for Sophist Sage later on, or whether they'll stick with something so to allow that bot lane to be a little bit more responsive, whereas UCI, on the other hand, want to get 2 power picks very quickly.
Well, fortunately for Smacks, there will be no team disappointing him with a Rift Herald / package timing. The Koki banned away by UCI, so prizing that one just a little too high on Serenok. And I wonder if we end up seeing a Victor first pick here, right? We've seen this mid lane pool traded, particularly with Vex taken away as well. There's a real opportunity that Victor gets highly priced here, and that's exactly what we're going to see. Every AD carry is still open and available, so you have your choice to trade whichever ADCs you desire. With Ezreal rising up in priority, this is a pick that you may well want up against the Caitlyn. And it is going to be that exact same instance. They now have the power, though, dear, to go Caitlyn Lux and pick up the 2 piece that they were denied in game number 1. It looks like, though, Karma is that slightly highly prized enchanter. Is going to be a more aggressive pushing lane to enable the success for Sahori early on.
And Karma brings so much on her roams as well, and her ability to impact the whole team in later game fights, and Lux very much to win the lane. Now, Bay State also, at the same time, get denied that Karma from the Jhin that they would normally pair alongside it to counter a Caitlyn. This time, perhaps opting for the Lux themselves to try and shut down the Caitlyn Karma that they are going to be faced with. It is going to be a bot lane matchup to fight in. However, for UCI, though they have first picked it, I still don't expect it to be the focus. UCI, their strong side is their top side, and none of those champions have been picked up yet, so they have to have something special in store for us.
The good thing is that Caitlyn Karma can be self-sufficient, but if that is the case, then you really do need to be fearful of a jungle gank. You need to be very cognizant of where Dragon Min is, because we saw the power of double range getting focused out, and particularly in this game when you have 2 ranged supports, it's very easy to get a couple ganks down early on and take down these squishy supports. UCI, they have their option now, very easy just to counterpick in the mid lane, and Syndra is a nice answer to the Victor. You have just slightly less range, the Death Ray outranging the majority of Syndra's leading DPS, but you can find that scatter with a lot more ease than the Victor finds his stun, so again, going to be a nice oriented matchup for Sinner in the mid lane, and one of his picks that he sort of made his name for himself on as well. Going into the second round of fans, both of these teams needing to get rid of junglers and top laners, and it looks like UCI are focusing top, where Bay State, they want to get rid of some power picks in the jungle off of Dwong Pro's pool.
And for good reason. You don't want to have to deal with Dwong in his comfort zone, because that is where the real strength of UCI's early game comes from. Again, I look at this and I go, you take away Trundle here, but again, they opt for the Darius. Bay State know exactly what they want. They're comfortable against the Trundle from UCI, it seems. And as I revise all the bans, that's still available here. I'd like to see it picked up.
Certainly gives them, again, even more early game opportunity if they can just focus out this, the entire bot side of Bay State. They have an incredibly Trundle susceptible comp. Olaf, though, sort of doubles down, hems in on their composition right here for a bot side supremacy. They've gotten a ton of early game priority. But this Olaf should really double down on that. The Jarvan as an answer to the Olaf is an age-old classic, as well as Jarvan being incredibly meta right now. He's an absolutely dream at pickup for Dragon Min. The reason you like taking Jarvan into the Olaf is, yes, Olaf immune CC. What he doesn't do is immune having terrain being built around him. You can quite easily at the start of team fights pin the Olaf in a little baby cage, flag and drag your way out and still have impact in the fight, where you're going to see Dwong Pro sat in that Cataclysm having absolutely nowhere to go.
Two different cages now in a weird way with the Camille. Of course, the Camille much less effective against the Olaf. However, going to make somebody else's day difficult, and I think I know exactly who it's going to be. Sorry, it does not seem like he's going to get out of this unscathed. However, with the last pickup here likely going over, I want to say into the top side here, Graves is an interesting selection here. Are they really? Do you really think they're putting Olaf top? Oh my god, they're putting Yone top. Yone's going top.
They were never going to put the Olaf top, but it was a nice notion anyway to try and get some cheese in the early stages for Beric. Yone, though, as an answer to the Camille, certainly going to be a level 1 to keep your eyes on. Lethal tempo on Yone. He's absolutely bonkers, and we see that Bejani opting into the Ignite in terms of the summoner spells, maybe trying to cheat a little bit of the laning phase where he's able to get a extra advantage rather than just champion kits. We'll have to wait and see whether or not we've got something like the Conqueror press the attack, or if it's that more laning oriented Grasp of the Undying. Typically what you see for Camille's to try and gateway them through a fairly rough early stage of the game. But for Bay State right here, they've once again got themselves a fairly coherent team fighting composition, a really good split push in the late game. Whether or not the Camille will be able to outduel Beric in the 1v1 later on, we'll have to wait and see. Typically have to rely on kiting around Yone to beat him and best him out. Camille slightly more cooldown reliant than the Wind Brother up on the top side. UCI a little bit more of the same, with an emphasis more so on their early game power. And another, again, a sort of slight issue for UCI here is that they've got 3 lanes that are all going to want some sort of attention. So once again, eyes on Dwong Pro to see what he can do and where he can facilitate those leads.
But we want to be emphasizing to Dwong Pro as well that it is about doubling or even tripling down in what you've decided to go with in the early game, because all 3 lanes want attention, because everybody is going to be going, Dwong, come over here, help me out for just a second. Every second of a jungler's time is valuable, and I want to see it invested in the same lane over and over again. You talked about how the Caitlyn Karma is pretty self-sufficient, and I think I'm okay with letting that go. You want to go into the either mid or top lane right now, and the more that UCI can get one of those lanes ahead with the help of their jungler, the stronger their spear point is going to be in that mid game.
Exactly. Whoever they can look to break those picks open with, both Sindra and the Yone as well, are incredibly good at finding those. Scatter the Weak, Souls Unbound into Fate Sealed, certainly a very lethal pick tool. And as we mentioned, that I was saying would be good for Trundle. The reason, of course, that Bay State might find themselves in a few little issues here is that they've got no mobility on their bot side and mid laner. Sophist, Brain, and Serenok all going to be incredibly susceptible to going down if they get caught out by just a rogue undertow even. Sahori again going to have a large, really important time getting those traps down, because there's a lot of CC for him to try and follow up on. So for UCI here, again, the early game for them should be their focus, and if we don't see them out in front by 15-20 minutes, they're going to be in a really difficult position. For Bay State, more of the same. Control the early game, keep yourself out in front, and as we know, their composition, their team style is more oriented towards Sophist and Brain. If this Jhin gets to the later stages of this match, we should expect to see him be able to take over.
I gotta tell you, dude, Sophist's Jhin is something to behold.
It's insane.
We are in for a treat. This is really good. If you haven't seen it before, Bay State is going to be fighting tooth and nail in this game, and Sophist's Jhin has a heck of a lot of nail in it. It is really, really difficult to play against. UCI, on the other hand, do have threats that you talked about before. The Yone, importantly, really standing out to me in terms of backline access, or rather fast backline access. And this is where a lot of pressure is going to be put on Barrick, because he's actually pulled out the Yone in recent history to what I'll call middling success, and ultimately not a game win. This needs to be totally different, and it is a vote of confidence from both himself and his team that they're actually going with this one more time in a game that very well could lead them to being eliminated.
Exactly. This is an elimination match, as a reminder to everybody. If you lose, you go home. So a win almost is absolutely imperative here for UCI. We do see them charging into the topside jungle. Level 1 action. Sort of a brand deal for UCI at this point. Pejani, oh, that is crucial. That's actually very big. Stealing away that ward kill. We'll now hit level 2 off the first 6 creeps. So if we see some duking it out up on that top side, Beric could well get a little bit cheesed by that one. We'll have to wait and see, though. It is the Grasp of the Undying for Bejani up on the top side. So again, trying to give himself as many laning advantages as possible as the game gets later and later. Of course, the utilization of a flash and a lethal tempo certainly going to potentially outweigh what Bejani will be able to do.
Are Bay State setting up their own level 1 though right now? UCI are going to get spotted on that ward, but it could very well be that we get a little bit of skirmishing. You do have, I was going to say, okay, level 1 if you really wanted to fight, but it'd have to be more surprised than anything, and right now, it's not going to be Bay State opting into that early game. They know UCI are strong and instead retreating back into their own jungle, and it's high time they did as well, getting that damage down. Importantly, to unleash Dragon onto the rest of the map.
I really thought by some miracle that UCI just knew there were 3 people in there and they were about to collapse 4-man into that brush. Wasn't the case, and ultimately we have this jungle pathing where actually going to see both junglers head up toward the top side for their first clears. We actually see Dragon Min starting out very quickly heading up toward that top side, not particularly a full clear angle for him. Sophist takes an absolutely massive chunk right there, and be curious, I think we've got Inspiration second and a Time Warp Tonic for Sage with this boost 4-pot start, which is something I've not seen in a very long time.
It makes sense in trying to outlash this lane, especially if it was discussed beforehand that Dragon would be paying a little bit more attention to this Camille that they'd like to have as a strong side. Sophist is going to be powerful no matter what. He's going to show up in team fights, and right now he's showing up in lane. Detro going low, fourth shot secures first blood, and in the 2v2, Bay State are already finding the kills. With Brain, however, now in the 1v1, has level 2, and is actually doing pretty well against Saori, who's rocketing forward onto him, tanking up the minions. Brain is forced to flash. No summoners now exist at all in the bot lane. And in the jungle, we are getting a little special something something. Dragon steals away the red buff just in time. Dwong may be going down, but Detro is already on the way. Sniff this one out. Bejani has come over and goes, maybe I don't want to fight anymore. Well, Dragon gets the shield and gets out. Barrick flashing after him, gets the kill just barely, and returns to the Soul Unbound.
Yone, by the way. That range, insane. A slight disaster for Bejani as well. Should have been able to trade onto Dwang Pro, but his hook shot gets clipped on the close side of the wall on the backside of Golems. Absolute disaster for the Camille there. But overall, it's UCI coming out on top in these early stages. It was Dragon Min who started out that fight. And you know what, dear? That's a pretty good mitigating factor. Bejani has taken the Grasp, taken the Ignite, but up against double buffs, that makes your time a lot harder. It
just occurred to me as we were talking about it, and I was thinking about Soul Unbound. I was like, oh yeah, the suffering isn't over, because when a jungler dies, the lanes feel the repercussion, especially in the early game. With Dwang moving down towards the bot side, it might even be bot lane that is feeling those very same repercussions. So for Sage, not too low just yet. They've got into the wave crashing. We'll see how things end up working out. Brady now joining, though, is going to make this a lot harder.
We have double TPs, and now Brainy's here, as you say, makes it incredibly difficult. Do they get this?
No summoners on anybody except for Dwong right now, who has that flash, but he gets rooted underneath the tower and just barely misses out on the kill. You're right, Rooted. It was too much. It was disaster. In the mid lane, Bay State are trying to recover a little bit from what would have been some missing bot lane priority. Senna gonna go down to one more auto. You can only imagine Serenok being the one that picks it up. That is two pretty nice plays that were made for them in a very short amount of time.
That is so cool for Base. Stop the dive on the bot side, managed to kill for it. They also get a gank and a kill in the mid lane for Sinner Splash, force Beric's TP out of all things as well. Bay State, they started out this game incredibly well right now, up against UCI, who we talked about with this Olaf, are looking to snowball. The Caitlyn, Carmen bot lane are looking to find these leads, and then being shut down is beautiful for the Bay State squad.
Careful, Brainy, careful. He may have stepped a little bit too far forward, but instead, remember, Sophist having shown back up, does not get that fourth shot. Still flashless, and now slowed underneath his tower, ignited as well. This guy is going down. A double kill goes over to UCI's support, and, well, it may not be where they thought things were going to end up. 2 kills is 2 kills.
Deserved, honestly, for Detro, certainly setting up that play and keeping the hopes of UCI alive here in this matchup. Sahori, with an MVP level trap right there, honestly, picks up the pathing of Sailfist to within a T and stops himself from going down to any fourth shot capabilities, and just good presence of mind from Dwong Pro. We asked him to be proactive on the map and put himself in the correct spots at the correct times, and bot lane right then needed his help. They got it.
You want to talk to me a little bit about what's going on mid lane as well? We've been so focused on the constant fighting that it's... Oh, never mind. Constant fighting continues. Dwong now really deep inside. It ends up going down very quickly to the Chaos Storm and the help of his friends. However, with Beric so close, they weren't quite able to grab a kill back, where UCI instead likely losing another right now. 2 already having gone down, and Beric just barely escaping with the help of Distro. Now into the waiting arms of Cinna, with Sophist Sage still flashless, unable to pick up that kill.
He's got Swifty boots as well, which makes his chase down potential just incredibly high early on. We do get to see how this all started, though. It's Dwong Pro looking to try and take this Drake, and then Brainy getting chunked out to about half HP. Nice double Lucent Singularity, gets Sahori chunked out, Dwong Pro as well forced down, and a crucial flash actually from Serenok at the top side of this fight. Keeps himself alive and stops Beric from having the high impact that he would have been looking for. Just able to find Q3 to get out to safety. But overall, Bay State once again coming away with a good fight, stopping what UCI were looking to accomplish. And stifling the plays. They don't need to take these Drakes here because they win later on.
Oh my lord, it is just a constant battle down here in the bot lane, though. Distro looking dead for Brain right now. Surely he's going to go down for this. Sori does end up managing to survive. Dwong, however, coming in from the side, is looking for any kill, something for UCI. And another lockup comes in from Sophist in the meantime. This should be at least 2 kills, but the flash away from Distro saves him, and UCI somehow finagled themselves a kill.
Demacia as he dies mid-cataclysm. Sahori! Everybody flashing out to safety. Detro and Sahori both living with the skin by the skin of their teeth right here. Bay State, they're coming out with the HP total advantage, but the gold, it's going the way of UCI, and now Dwong Pro's taken the grub. He's back! Brain is going to die.
Brain is dead. Yeah, it is a foregone conclusion. Even Dwong, pick a side, my man. Ends up going for Brain at the end, but that was potentially a 2-kill angle that turned into 1. Still, though, positive play for UCI.
Exactly, getting 2 kills overall in that skirmish, and overall in terms of gold disparity right now, they are out in front with a 1.2k gold lead. The Drake going to be secured as well. Up in the top side of the map, we can see Beric having a more than adequate time up against Bejani as well. So UCI doing exactly what they needed to here. It took them a couple minutes to get themselves in a good spot, but they've righted the ship. They've put themselves into this winning position, and it looks like Dragon Min going to be trying to trade this Herald, or this Dragon rather, for the Herald. Brain and Serenok there to help on out. Important little note as well before we get too much further into this one. Serenok, with those 3 kill participation, gets 75 stacks off his way toward his Hex Core upgrade So there we go. Laser already upgraded at 67 CS. You don't typically expect to see a Victor with a laser, but those 3 assists, or those 3 kills are doing him pretty good right now. His brain almost certainly dead.
Goodbye, Brain. This is going to be a no flash, the Ignite up, but, well, Ignite in that situation isn't doing you a whole lot of favors. Senna picks up a kill, and any envy that he would have felt at the ease at which Serenok is leveling is now gone. Sophist suffering in this bot side. Again, no flash, no heal either, so no second summoner doesn't land the root onto Detro and isn't going to get anything for his majestic death underneath the tower.
There we go, the repercussions of losing your support right here. 3v1 under the turret. It's UCI continuing to find these advantages and slowly but slowly amount that gold lead to be even bigger. We were expecting them to try and look toward one side of the map here. Dwong Pro certainly doubling down, this time on the bot lane.
I am surprised to see Dwong Pro returning there as well, especially because we talked about it to start the day, we talked about it all the way through Game 1, but UCI are not used to playing with these two. Sahori and Distro, subs for the day, are changing the way that UCI are playing to be a little bit more bot-centric, be it because they require resources, or because Dwong has decided that it's their best way forward, whichever it is. This is a new face of UCI that we're seeing, and the flexibility here is honestly astonishing given their recent record. I'm just not sure that it's going to be enough to pull them ahead, as the other lanes, stagnating for now, aren't bringing nearly as much oomph to the mid-game.
Beric and Sinner will be able to carry their own in the later stages. Talked about mages having that higher threshold of execution, the higher impact in the later stages of the game due to their natural range. Sinner going to be providing that for the UCI squad, and Yone in a late game team fight can be absolutely devastating. One ulti hits onto Sophist and he's going to die, no doubt. Flash Gale, Force be down. The Yone chase potential that we're talking about right here. Sahori, of course, still up in levels after all of the returned attention from Dwong Pro. Not immune to death.
That is quite a bit of damage coming down. Sahori able to avoid that final spark, however, will also avoid the majority of the damage, and Dwong says, hello! Hey, alright.
I'll take the fourth shot.
He's gone. He's gone now, yeah. That's it. It's just information that got given over to Bay State there, and with Dragon Min towards the bot lane as well, information can be everything. Summoner's still available for Sahori, no flash, but heal, however, makes this tower dive potential dangerous, but if you can bait a fight, hey, you can go for that flag drag and Cataclysm dunk.
Remember, no ultis here for Bay State, since it's incredibly difficult to try and execute on, and Dragon Min's timing going to need to be crucial here.
Dead, actually. They stepped a little bit too far forward. Cataclysm easy enough as Detro gets focused down. They're a little bit split, our Bay State, but picking up one kill and soon to be a second, you would imagine. Detro surprises everybody by getting out underneath the turret, and Barrack surprises everybody by picking up the kill up towards the top side. Serenok, however, is coming in, not to let the bot lane fight go down without him, and arrives just in time to throw down a 2v2 and a Chaos Storm right on top of Sinna. Dwong Pro trying to do what he can on top of Brain as the final spark comes off cooldown and almost gets the kill again, but leaves just two for Serenok to clean up. This should be done, but the stun just barely should save Sinna's life. Laser may just do it, and Sinna sticks around a second too long, but we know there was no way out.
Serenok there with the big roam answer. Does clean up here for Bay State College, so a glimpse of hope right here from the mid lane. You get to see what happened up on this top side. Beric initiating here. Does use his E here, so non-committal by the Yone to begin with, and it looks like just able to close up this gap. Q3 into ulti, I imagine, starts us off as Bejani with no Q2. Gets caught on out and doesn't even use his ult. He just wins this.
He's just straight up vibing. Absorbs the Ignite as well for a little bit of a fight later on, potentially, as Rift Herald is getting used in the mid lane while we return to live. Dwong is going to be able to clean that up, and it's just the gold from the plates that end up going to Bay State just in time, I might add, as those are expiring pretty darn soon.
5 kill participation now for the Victor as well. Once again, stacking up those passive stacks very quickly. Beric having a nice time up on this top side of Summoner's Rift with that Vamp Scepter as well. Can take these trades at will because he knows he's going to be able to sustain himself back up off the wave. Yes, there's a mythic discrepancy, but right now Vamp Scepter and tier 2 boots, Yone's full build.
See how Sahori is doing down towards the bot side as well. You talked about that discrepancy. Well, there's a big one in the favor of Sophist. Sage on the southern end of the Rift has that completed Gale Force to be able to finish off the kills. But weirdly enough, even with him feeling himself in the items, it's UCI that are looking more comfortable right now, taking the aggressive trades and taking the Dragon at the same time, forcing Brain to flash. Sophist will barely get away, but now the junglers have arrived, and Dragon looks toward that Dragon a little bit too little, a little bit too late. Serenok maybe trying to breathe some life into this, and the root comes in, forcing Ragnarok out of Duong, but ultimately letting UCI away without paying the toll for this Dragon.
Yeah, so that's 2 now. Dragons picked up for UCI. They are currently cycling themselves up for a very quick Ocean Soul, if they're able to collect the 3rd one. And their early game, we were anticipating, was going to be strong. For UCI, they need to keep on going. Remember, this Olaf is going to fall off the later this game goes. Yes, the newer items give him a little bit of a better way into the late game. It's not quite the age-old Season 8 fall-off of a Mountain Olaf that we used to see. But this Olaf's still going to be limited in its effectiveness as this game does go on. So UCI need to force some more neutral objectives, force some more kills, force some turrets, because currently we're still yet to see first brick go down. There is a Rift Herald up on that top side of the Rift, which you can already see is getting a little bit of attention here. Support's taking their resets, likely to walk their way up toward this top lane and maybe try and put a little bit more priority into the baby purple worm, the purple Sheldon.
We're waiting for this next objective fight to really be the test for UCI and Bay State. As UCI continue to apply pressure, importantly with that Caitlyn, having felt a lot more comfortable in lane recently, Bay State are returning by continuing to whittle away at the mid lane tower, getting themselves some very nice lane and map priorities should that be taken down. However, with Duong now showing his face around the Rift Herald, it is going to be time to fight. And keep in mind, Barrick has just recalled getting himself that first item spike of the Immortal Shield Bow. So if we do fight, at the very least, UCI have that big one item spike to perhaps put them ahead above Bay State.
No package here in this game, so it's going to be a 5v5 4 on merit. And zone control alone here. Benjani dives on forward, not quite looking for it. Your key ultis here looking for are Fates Sealed, plus that Cataclysm. If you can lock up the Jarvan, that is going to be beautiful. Flash on everybody except Serenok and Dragon Min, and now fight topside.
Oh lord, Barrick's taking a lot of damage. This is looking very doomed. We were hoping for the Fate Sealed, but we are getting it in a more metaphorical way than I think we had expected. Barrick, now gone for the next 30 seconds, has essentially forfeited this Rift Herald over to the side of Bay State, and UCI trying to answer back in the mid lane. May just be able to secure this tower, but not even that.
Oh, it's on its last legs though. That route from Brain not quite going to be able to connect, but that's enough here. Really well played by Serenok to play at the edge of his range and get that turret to stay alive. Rift Herald secured then for the Bay State College squad. Puts them with a slight advantage. I imagine that these mid-tier ones likely to get traded very quickly unless we see some insane priority on keeping somebody in the mid lane for the remainder of the game. Honestly, one quick lapse in judgment and those turrets are both a stiff breeze away from falling over.
Duong's gonna go over here. We want to fight. They know. They've been tracking Dragon for a while, but the problem is it's just so hard to kill anyone from Bay State. There's no reason to engage, and on UCI, we talked about this earlier, there just isn't the ability to force an engage either. It's got to be Bay State opting into it every time, and they've managed to keep this entire squad of UCI at arm's length, even around these last couple objectives. Majani is really the one that can start fights easily. Dragon at the same time on Bay State, so really it is going to be these fights happening at Bay State's whim, unless UCI can manufacture these fights around objectives that they were unable to just minutes ago.
And once again here, trying to set up the picks with the likes of Ione plus Scatter combo is their way to success. Gale forced by Sahori. Now with no flash, it's slightly susceptible for the next minute or so before that summoner spell does come back up off cooldown. Going to take a reset and allow that one to come up for a little bit. It looks like BT as a second item for Sahori, and in terms of those mid-game item spikes, it's going to be pretty powerful.
Ow! Ow!
Yeah.
Oh god, that really, you know what? That's quite rude, honestly. And the fact that it chunks out Sinner to the point that he has to recall gives Bay State a lot for their trouble. After having invested 2 ults, they get the mid lane tower, but more than the mid lane tower, Rudude, they now have so much more mid priority for this upcoming dragon. 12 seconds away, Sin has just been forced to recall and teleport, and while UCI have an ultimate advantage, they don't have a territorial one.
No, complete control over the river right now for Bay State, so they have got the, as you say, territorial advantage.
Detro's a little bit split, I will say. Cataclysm, now he's completely split. He's split by the thin band we call Mortality, as Duong gets chased out by that very 4th shot that doesn't quite find him. Bay State have a single-man advantage in their favor, and it's around this 3rd dragon that would otherwise have put UCI on sole point. This flank from Barrick, though, could spell disaster. Serenok spots him now, and Barrick has got to make this worth. The fate sealed, not invested just yet, but he uses it to completely clap down on Serenok. Having lost Cinna, however, UCI still very much struggling in this fight. Dragon is just not participating in it. He is just straight up vibing over here by the actual dragon, and Barrick, unable to take it away, is going to watch that one go down, and now potentially watch his team fall as well. Root comes in from Sophis, 4th shot follows, and Duong, 1 auto away from death, will finally be shut down by Sophist Sage, as Bay State claimed the dragon and several lives of UCI.
Is he actually going to get out of here? Sahuri's got a blast cone. He may have just danced his way to safety.
This guy's nuts.
Wow. Hookshot not quite landing right there, and it is going to be Sahuri who keeps his life, but ultimately, once again, it's Bay State who come away with the large advantage on the play. Yes, Serenok gets shut down, but Sophie Sage on this gin. 7-4-4 right now. An absolute monster in this game, will be a lethal threat throughout. Serenok, you can see here, baiting Beric, and you know it's nice from Beric to hold Fate Sealed until the very end, and all of the mobility has been used. But it's a trade of a 1-for-1, and then on this top side as well, Duong Pro goes exceptionally low. All this time, by the way, Dragon just taking the Dragon. He's got absolutely no concerns that his team can't win that fight. And it's this pocket of vision that Bejani finds that, again, adds to the fact that I don't know how Sahuri lived here.
It is really wild, actually. The AD carry of all people was able to survive, but we are continuing to take people down, so he will have his time. Cinna goes down on the top side, and it's another play from Bay State that now has pushed them into being a mere 1,000 gold behind UCI again. After an early game that looked pretty decent from UCI, it is this mid-game where Bay State are continuing to thrive, and it is Dragon making a lot of these plays that are starting things off on the right foot.
Now, Karma going to try and pocket Duong Pro, it appears, for the time being, mitigating some of that mid-game, late-game damage fall-off from the Olaf, just by giving him Sterax on a 4-second cooldown. Bejani does have hook shot. Can he get away?
He should be totally fine. However, Chilling Smite does a lot of work, and so does the slow from the Karma. Teleport up here as Bejani tries to turn things around onto Detro. Now has a friend in Serenok, who, oh lord, doesn't quite manage to burn down Duong Pro in time, but should actually be able to take this 2v1. Takes out Detro in the meantime, and it's Sophist Sage who runs up to collect another kill with that curtain call, taking down 2 members of UCI for the 1 of Bay State. They just keep trading up, Rudude.
Well, Bejani does fall, but it's worthwhile. Those trades, as you mentioned, going positive for the Bay State squad. Able to use their own teleport. Serenok comes on in, and the curtain call from Sophist Sage nets a 2-for-1 trade in their favour. It won't amount to particularly anything on the map. You can see the bot lane not in a great position to get forced into that turret just yet. I imagine that Bejani will head his way down here because it is a stacking wave that somebody's going to look to go and collect. Beric, probably the one in charge of that one. And then, obviously for now, UCI, their game becoming more and more difficult. And now it could well be Sinner getting caught once again off in the side lane.
Doesn't have a whole lot of options to escape, and now he has even fewer. Dragon sits inside the Cataclysm, smacking him with this Demacian standard over and over until eventually Cinna's will and health bar dissipate. Another member of UCI missing, this time not as consequential to them, as there's nothing that they need to fight around just yet, but very soon there is going to need to be, because it's 23 minutes, and Bay State, they're thinking about Baron.
Yeah, they were thinking about it. That is the operative word right there. I think Serenok maybe took a little poke at it, but it's not going to be the case just yet. TP in. Bejani has got Hextech Ultimatum.
Oh, but the hook shot. That actually could have been an engage. Unlikely, I'll say, but could have been an engage. And what it certainly is a teleport gone. Bay State try and make a play there, and they don't get anything for it.
Now, dear, the notion of this game so far has been that UCI need to win this game early or they're going to be in a rough spot later on. But we've got to later on, and there's an X factor that I've not particularly touched on this game. It's Beric up in the top lane, that 2 levels ahead of his laning opponent, with 2 items on the Yone, 100% crit chance already, stopwatching his inventory. We're looking at people that he's going to be looking to kill. He's got a 3-level lead over Sophid Sage. Granted, for Serenok, he's even in levels. But taking down any of these carries in the backline for the Yone is going to be fairly easy for him if he can find access to them. That, of course, being the leading problem with the help that Stopwatch is going to provide him. A lot of time can be spent just holding up in the backline of the team fight, causing disruption, as we so know that he can provide. But with this Drake spawning now in 12 seconds, your eyes on Beric for this one. Caitlyn traps have already been set up. Your flashes for everyone pretty much available. Sinner, he's the only one really missing it. The flashes are coming up in the next 10 seconds or so for UCI and BC and Bay State.
UCI absolutely need this dragon. However, it's their last chance at soul point before the scaling from Bay State really does take over, leaving Beric as the only option. And with Duong actually fielding most of the aggression for right now, Bay State don't know this has started, but still Dragon steals it away right at the end. Beric popping back with that soul unbound, may very soon find his soul truly unbound, as he's unable to do anything in this team fight anymore. But a massive stun from Sinna may just have saved the majority of UCI. He will go down. Duong still getting rooted up, however, will fall at the same time, and it's 4 members of UCI that fall, leaving only Detro alive to tell the tale.
Bejani able to kite out the Yone, as we talked about in the draft, playing it a little bit slower. Beric unable to find the fight that he so desired. The Baron going to be their prize. 4 kills, as well as now a second Ocean Dragon, a bot lane tier 1, and now the gold is going to cascade into Bay State's favour. Look at this fight setup. Curtain call into a Jarvan flag and drag in for the steal. Swiftly as you like, and on the bot side of this fight it is just kiting out Beric. Shield bow pops without him being in the backline is disaster for any form of Yone, and then this Caitlyn positioning was unfortunately caught out by a Cataclysm, and from there on in it's really all over. TP though in your picture-in-picture doesn't look to have found anything. As, we did see Sinner just go for a little bit of a wander into the bot side jungle down on the bottom of your screens right here, and then of course the Baron picked up for Bay State.
Yeah, massive for them, and now keeping them on the front foot. Still, the mid lane tower alive, surprisingly. Sinna trying to find a pick right now. Not actually spotted by the sweeper, however, Beric is, and Dragon going to start the fight off with the Cataclysm instantly onto Sinna. Sub 100 HP on this guy, but he manages to survive. Beric nearly takes out Sophis Sage, but nobody's there to finish the job, as he ends up doing it himself, jumping right on top of Dragon mid after with the Fate Sealed. This is the Beric that we needed to see, and now with Serenok showing up, it is the Beric that showed up a little bit too late. Duong being chased down in the jungle will be finally finished off to complete the ace and leave Bay State the only members left alive.
3 Barons taken down, but what can Bay State accomplish with the 2 members that have got it? A complete ace right now and 10 seconds on the bot lane. Likely to just be this tier 2, potentially breaking open the base, but that's a fight that we need a replay of, because there's a crucial spell from Sinner that stops this fight from being an absolute wipe, and that keeps UCI just barely in this game. They're losing out on that fight, but you see glimmers of hope for UCI that they can potentially come back into this game. You mentioned it in that fight, dear, that Beric certainly very much up to the par. Sahori gets absolutely one-shot by Serenok. Okay, that's great. Sinner's just trying to kite his way out on the top side as well. We don't unfortunately get to see it, but Sinner's kiting away with those scatters, and unfortunately for UCI, it wasn't quite enough. The Bejani combo with Serenok is able to finish off this lowly jungler, and unfortunately, as we mentioned, the late game scaling of an Olaf not too great up against the likes of a Camille and a Victor.
I see the dream though, and I fully believe that, especially even with Senna really suffering right now, Barrick can be the bastion for this team later on. It does seem like just one misstep could end the game for UCI, and they need so many more team fights to go in their favor before they can comfortably say the game is theirs. Bay State just need a little bit more time even to take down these structures before it is going to be a Mount Olympus in front of UCI to come back. And with Bejani able to measure up against Barrick on the side lane, if not the team fight, things should be alright.
Death Stance for Camille here in this side lane is going to do no amount, or do an untold amount of help for him. And obviously reducing the amount of damage taken in burst. You still take the damage overall, but it gives you the opportunity to sustain with the likes of your Grasp of the Undying and get that health given back just a little bit sooner. But Barrick on this side lane should still be largely favoured in the 1v1 to take the fights, particularly with the true damage that you can get from that Soul Unbound. You really can start to chew through all of this armor that Bejani is beginning to build on up here. Steel Caps already in the back pocket. We've got the Sterax as well to make his life a little bit, easier on Bejani's side, staying alive. Drake spawning in 22 seconds though, dear. It's a story for this game as old as time.
Oh yeah.
As finally the mid-tier 1 falls, but a fight around a dragon. Who could have seen this one coming? UCI, they've already got their traps down, but if they're just walking through the river, it looks like Bay State are going to have pretty free access. Sinner with no flash, but importantly, Sophie Sage and Serenok don't have theirs either.
Quite a lot of vision for UCI, however, slowly being whittled away at by Bay State, with Barrick hiding inside of the pit, spotted out by Bejani. This should be pinged, and Barrick does not know that he is spotted as of now. The flank angle given up, but the Dragon also begun on the control ward. Barrick is going to get out and try and instead go for a flank, but again, spotted. This Yone cannot catch a break, and UCI, they keep being pushed in towards this bot side, where Bejani is waiting to start off the fight. It's got to come down to a smite fight between Duong and Dragon Man, and as Duong steps forward, he's reduced to almost half health. Sophist Sage opening up. He's going to force UCI back even further, and Bay State are still full health, turning onto the Dragon. Now this should be a fight in their advantage, and Dragon jumping over the wall with that flag and drag. Doesn't lay down the Cataclysm just yet. It is a trade of poke. It is slow, it is steady, but it is going in Bay State's favor, with Sophist Sage going low and Detro going lower. The ace in the hole isn't going to connect. Dragon now at 1,000 health, taken down by Bay State, and the fight doesn't even have to happen. They got what they came for.
Bay State have already got 2 Ocean Drakes, and in that long exchange, they actually came up huge for them. But Bay State, they're not done yet. They've got the Dragon, they had the waves in beautiful positions. Top lane was constantly forcing into the turret, now mid lane in a very scary spot. This turret could be broken open. The inhibitor as well, potentially a prize. Look at your picture. Barrick, he's already almost down. It's Dragonmin and Bejani that are causing an absolute ruckus down in the bot lane.
Nobody could come back to help, and as a result, Bay State get not one inhibitor, but potentially even more, as they are looking for that top lane tier 3. The inhibitor tower going to fall now, and again, likely the inhibitors. There's still a numbers advantage for Bay State, but Barrick could change all of that. Remember this Yone, as he flashes on top of Sophist Sage, ends up taking the jump onto Serenok with the Fate Sealed, comes back with the Soul Unbound, and is finally popped into GA. He takes one with him, but wasn't enough for UCI. Barrick comes out, gets stunned, gets taken down, and just like that, the dreams, the hopes of UCI of staying inside the tournament melt just like their Yone.
Jarvan down on the bot side of the rift as well, just adding insult to injury for UCI. Dragon Min going to be likely able to take down this bot lane tier 2, as this is the last bastion outside of their base. UCI clutching right now at their final couple of turrets with the late game of a Camille, the late game of this Victor and Jhin combo as well. The poke, the siege, the setup from Bay State is just all too much. Level leads almost around the board as well for the Bay State squad. An intangible of gold in their favour with that as well. And you have to feel like UCI, they are on their last legs right here. Barrick has sort of the weight of the team on his shoulders. Sahori, with this really defensive build, does not have the damage to carry these fights at all. And it really needs to hope that Sinner can start to step up as well, that Barrick can carry him through this team fight. Because at the minute, it's looking very scary for UCI.
Senna not even close to that third item as well, so Hori might be able to get this red buff, and he does with that final auto, just barely. But as Barrick down in the bot side is going up against Bejani, it is the Baron that is the true focus of Bay State, and it's something that you cannot approach as UCI. They don't have the vision, they don't have the data, and UCI are relegated to waiting till this Baron goes down, waiting till the minions are in their base to try and find a team fight to save them.
And with this Baron now, the composition, the rest of this game, it plays itself for Bay State. Serenok will just kill Sinner here. He has got flash, but don't know if that's going to be enough.
He's level 18, 3-level lead. It is just an auto away. Senna actually might have the Chaos Storm expiring, but even with that, there's nothing left up to chance by Serenok. Barrick, in the meantime, is trying to 1v1, and even this is a little bit risky as Bajani waits for him right back by the Soul Unbound. This might still be the 1v1 win for the Camille. Fate Sealed comes in, however, and Bajani just barely is going to go down. A 1,000 gold shutdown goes over to Barrick, and for now, it'll mean the Bay State retreat.
Yeah, we didn't catch it on screen, but we also saw Bejani fall as well. Sahori able to combine and take down the victor in the top side of the map. So a couple crucial picks for UCI right here. Not quite playing with the respect that rather Bay State not quite playing with the respect that UCI deserve. They've got 2 inhibitors down here. This should be a done deal when you have Baron. You just have to go 5 members down into the bot lane. Let the super minions do their work elsewhere. It looks like we're going to be stalled out for just a little bit longer. The Ocean Soul very likely to go to Bay State here because UCI cannot leave their base. With 2 waves of pushing super minions, they're going to have to do a massive effort forcing those waves all the way back toward Bay State's base before they start to force their way forward.
Look at how much they're collecting elsewhere, though. Even Brain going low right now. Ragnarok in the hands of Dwong will be a little bit more gold going the way of UCI, and they're starting to come back. There are now 3-4 items on the Caitlyn. Sahori starting to really become problematic. Sinna's picked up their 3rd item. Nazanya's Hourglass providing a lot of safety to them, and if Dragon, ooh lord, Dragon finds this kill, things are over with Bajani on the flank. This kill really will be finalized. Senna going down now. Numbers advantage to Bay State, and they should be able to take whatever they like, be it Dragon and be it an attempt at the end of the game.
Baron's still available for the next 52 seconds as well. Bongpro gets jumped on.
No ult for him means that he goes down as soon as that root connects, and it leaves it all up to Barrick. GA still not back up off cooldown since it was the last used trying to find the kills on Serenok and Sophist Sage. He's got no options to engage for the moment, while Soul Unbound still on cooldown, but this has to be the last stand for UCI, and it is in a 3v5. Barrick throws down that Fate Seal, pulls the Zanyas, but it simply isn't enough as Sahori gets chased out by the Chaos Storm, still remaining post-mortem from Serenok. Dragon, Sophist, Sage, and Bajani push in towards the base, take down these inhibitors once again, and very well could try and escape with yet another. Brain, having shown back up, gives them plenty of safety, plenty of shields, and Rudude, they're not going to go for the end. They're going to let this one go on a little bit longer, but the conviction with which they are taking these team fights leaves very little to chance.
Yeah, we talked about it from the very get-go that UCI were going to need an early game lead. They found it, but their closeout just hasn't been there. Now they've got an absolute mammoth mountain to climb up. They've been finding these picks, but with an Ocean Soul against them, it became even harder. Baron up in 2 minutes 30. Don't know that Bay State are going to need this one here with 1 inhibitor standing up in the top lane. I imagine that this game just plays itself, but I said that last time. We're still here, dear. We're still 38 minutes into this game when it probably should have been over. The final hope for UCI, we have to keep mentioning, it is Barrick. He is the one person on this squad who will be able to carry these team fights. Full build on the Yone, able to win out in the 1v1 versus Bejani, and if he can find the miracle Yone ulti, the miracle fight to take down the carries, there's a chance that UCI can keep themselves in this siege, keep themselves in the Proving Grounds circuit qualifier, because if they lose here, dear, they've gone home.
Barrick has that GA backup, crucially, something he did not have last fight. But like you say, UCI, they're coming down to those last couple seconds in Proving Grounds if they cannot find a fight. And a triple inhib just makes life even more difficult for them, if it's even imaginable, as Sophist Sage takes down that last bit of base from UCI. They are relegated in to watch these super minions push their game to its very end, to its limitations, and Bay State can throw down the very same poke that they did at the Dragon Pit and continue to harass UCI to a point that they cannot come back from.
They need to fight here, because your base will get overrun, whether you have the minions or Baron or not. Sinner's already dead, he's got sent 10 HP. He survives, but now the minions are going to start to do some hard work right now. Bay State can step up to the turrets and start to take them down. Detro gets chunked as well, and Sophie's just chipping away. That's one turret already dead.
With one turret left remaining, Dwong knows he has to pull the trigger, but again, UCI do not have the engage. Bay State dancing around them with this Ocean Soul. Bait Barrick in, get that fate sealed, however, and it is one kill going the way of UCI with the Soul Unbound, bringing Barrick back. Everybody peels back to try and stop Bajani, but Dragon Min is the one jumping forward, still peeling for Sophist Sage, who takes down that turret, and with the Nexus exposed, maybe spelling the end of UCI. Barrick is all over Sophist, but he can't find the kill in time. The Nexus goes down, and Bay State will be the ones continuing in the unified Proving Grounds.
Wow, well, UCI, after having taken a game off of Golden Guardians Academy, they fall 2-0 to Bay State College Maroon. A truly impressive 2-0. Well, that had me at the edge of my seat for the most part right there. There was definitely times that we thought UCI would have been able to take that game, and game number one was no different either. A really good series throughout. Yes, they were 2-2-0s today, but they were very entertaining all the same.
My heart is in my throat, Rudy. That was still, up till the very end, an amazing fight to watch break out. Even as difficult as it was for UCI, we could not deny that there was hope there. But I'm sure our analyst desk has some much more cynical takes on it, knowing them. And I'd like to hear what they have to say, because there was a lot going on in that game. So we're going to take a very short break, and when we come back, it'll be the AD.
gentlemen, welcome back to the Proving Grounds circuit here as I got Sage from the bot lane of Bay State. How's it going?
Hello, I'm doing good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic, especially after getting to see you guys have a very fun matchup. And it looked like you had a very fun time inside the bot lane inside this series. Would you like to expand on that a bit?
Yeah, early game I didn't expect Graves to gank like bot lane level 2 after the blue, but like, I still won the lane first game, so I'm happy with that. But like, second game was a little bit hard because like he actually camped bot lane like entire time.
But after that Ezreal performance, can you blame him?
Yeah, yeah, true. I mean, yeah, they had a great plan to like shut me down, but still we won the game, so I'm kind of happy with that.
Okay, yeah, I mean, getting the dub is always something to be excited and happy about. So you do get to move on to the next round of competition here, and you guys did get to face UCI just recently here. I will like to touch on one of the questions that we had that popped up in air was the opposing mid laner, Senna, over on the mid side of UCI, posted that the player he was afraid of the most was Serenok, your mid laner. How do you feel about people being afraid of your mid laner when they're coming into these matchups?
I mean, like this is like my first time playing competitive, so like they don't really know me, so I'm okay with that. But after this series, like I hope they like are afraid more about me.
Okay, so you're like, I'm the threat. Hold on, spotlight over on me. I like it. Well, with you saying this is your first time kind of getting into the competitive space, how has been competing here inside of the Proving Ground circuit? How has that been for you, these matches and whatnot?
So far games are going well, and yeah, I'm like improving with my team, like doing communications and and shot calling. Yeah, I think we are just getting better as a team.
That's scary because you guys are the squad that a lot of people will come on and be like, this is the Chaos Squad. They're all over the place. So if you guys are getting improving, that lowers down the chaos into being beneficial for the opposing team at sometimes. So with that being said, I do want to kind of touch on the fact that you guys do know what your matchup is coming up. You guys have a rematch opportunity coming up. How are you guys feeling going into that?
I think after this series, I think we are ready to face them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're ready for them. You're ready to show a wild card that you are you're the threat, right? Like that's what we're looking out for. Some pop-off performances coming here soon. With that being said, I noticed that you don't have a Twitter or anything like that, man. What do you got to say for everybody here who's watching, cheering you, and some new fans that you may have acquired inside of the game today?
I mean, you guys can just watch my games on this stream, but I think if I just keep playing League, I might just do the Twitter too and streaming maybe. I didn't decide yet. Yep.
All right, more of a spotlight. Let's go. I'm all about it, man. Let's get it. With that being said, Sage, I want to thank you so much for coming out to the interview, giving us some insight on your win, and congrats yet again. You make sure you have yourself a good night, as we're going to go ahead and go back over to our desk here, flipping it on back. As we are back in it yet again. And gentlemen, we just got to hear from Sage himself. What a fantastic thing to hear, getting into that competitive spree. But we got to talk about this Bay State dub here.
Yeah, big dub for them as well. Like you said, they now have the opportunity to play against Wildcard for the second seed out of this group. And this is not what I expected to happen at all. I definitely came into this expecting UCI to take the win. And if we still have the caster predictions up as well, this is a great time to flame all of our friends. Who all predicted UCI over Bay State. Look at all of these handsome faces that predicted wrong.
Yeah, look at it. You got Eric, you got Dean. They both got it wrong.
Looks like Beatdown gets a last laugh.
Yeah, Beatdown got the last laugh.
Beatdown's probably winning after today. It looks like he got Just about everything right. Of course, the Radiance versus Team Ambition one hasn't ended quite yet, but he's got the chance to make it all the way up to double digits. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Could be the big brain, the first big brain of them all.
Big Brain Boulevard.
Big Brain Boulevard. Yo, rebrand. Here it is.
That is a pretty good rebrand, I'm not gonna lie.
With that being said, we do want to go ahead and start talking about this matchup and how exactly it came to be here from this squad. Bay State coming in was able to put in some pretty good work, especially game number 1. Game 2, a little bit more of a struggle, but we do have some points to go over and some replays to boot as well to show some of the stuff that was happening. Miko, looking at some of the stuff that was happening inside this game, you were talking quite a bit about the jungle pathing and how exactly it needed to work out.
Yeah, so this is something that is relatively fresh in my mind because a very similar occasion happened in the DK versus KT game 2. If you want to look at it, go for it. Where there was a very strong bot lane that didn't need leash, and then they identified very early that the enemy bot lane had leash and the jungler is pathing away from them. And when that typically happens and you have complete lane control, you're going to be able to hit level 2 first, and then that's when you just trade aggressively extreme to the point that you're using Ignite, like getting them critically low to get that wave control. And if you die by 3 during that time and the Olaf is there, that bot lane just dies. Or Jarvan has to just 180 degree give up all his camps and then go down there, and then either that, like, it's just not going to work. And typically, like, the reason why it is like really important to do things like this, and I think this is a little bit later too, is that you could see how promising and how strong it could potentially be if the setup sort is correct. But it just doesn't happen like that. Like, this dive should have happened a whole wave before, and it just got thinned out just because Long Pro was doing crap before when the wave was just like all prepped up and ready for him.
Yeah, and you can see the chaos starts to unfold across the rest of the map. Senna caught out of position here. It's a hard knock life.
They had their jungler showing bot lane, so it's really easy for them to make that mid lane gank onto Senna as well. So yeah, just a really great opening for Bay State after this.
Crab just won them the game. It's just another victory for Crab.
Crab gets another victory today, but Bay State had a couple more things that were happening for themselves here. But this one was a little bit different, as we do have a thing with UCI for a red invade that came in and led to some very interesting scenarios that continue to unfold.
This is a play that they tried a few times as well, but they made it work the first time, so that's good.
I think it is something that is, especially in particular, something that Bay State should have looked to do in the very early stage of last game, where they didn't particularly have Herald control, because there you're effectively splitting the map and then punishing for people who are like taking a pathway that is not rightfully theirs. But I think that those plays were fine, and the overall theme of UCI as a whole is that they seem to have like either a gist of a really good idea or like a basis of a really good idea, but it was those small moments, really small intricacies that they just either missed or just ignored that ended up like leading to catastrophic results, which is quite disappointing. Like, from their perspective, it must be.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be, right? Like, the way that everything played out, it was a rough thing that they had to end up playing through. And talking about it, do have the little bit of a replay coming up at us here in a moment. See exactly where we can see the flanking that could possibly happen. We've seen Drake fights. It was a chaotic game, guys. Like, this was a 40-minute fight where both teams were just doing all sorts of mischief.
Yeah, so the red side invades were really fun, or the red jungle invades. We talked about the one that worked really well. This is the one that didn't work all that well. We get to see Cinnamon Bread had just previously teleported into this brush to try to find a play, but then Dragonman actually spotted him out with the sweeper, just like scouting out the brush, and then the entirety of UC Irvine is completely found out. Really unfortunate. But it just goes to show you that you can't make the same play twice in the same game. You will get punished.
Yeah, and especially the two people that are waiting for that trap, or somebody that if you breathe on them, they'll die. And it's like if a Scion or if Irelia is doing that play, then it will be much better. But it's a Syndra. Like there's a reason why your range mage, you are not supposed to be close enough to that people. And the worst part is when she flashed away, she flashed straight into Serenok as well. So like it was a really she was caught between a rock and a hard place. It was just really hard to play.
It's one of those situations where you can tell that Senna usually plays like melee bruisers and enablers, because that's the kind of play that you would make if you're a Set or Galio or something like that. Not Syndra, though.
Yeah, turned into a bit of an unfortunate thing of mishaps. But before this happened, before this Syndra TP flank attempt came into play, we did have a Drake fight that broke out here. And like I said, the mischief, it was nonstop, man, and it was a steal that Bay State was actually able to get here. Smets, if you could walk me through this.
So we see UC Irvine actually in a pretty good spot, all things considered. They don't have vision of the bottom side of this this Drake pit, which is why Barrick has to divert his attention, which is really where things go down the drain for them. They don't have a very coordinated attack to keep the enemies outside of the pit, let alone the unfortunate Drake steal from Dragonman. And from there, UC Irvine realizes that they've got their boat mostly afloat, but they left one gaping hole in the bottom of the pit right there. So end up pouring all the water in, and it's very fitting because it's an ocean drake.
Very, very fitting. I appreciate the analogy there.
Yeah, and the analogy makes a lot of sense as well, because what they needed to do was they needed to have a systematic approach where they are flushing out all the anomalies and then making sure that they have the right setup. But the reason why it didn't really line up in that way is because they just rushed their time again. Like the dragon was pulled aggro too early, and then in an extended form of fight where you are constantly getting poked down by Victor and your Olaf is critically low, then what do you expect your Yone to do?
I feel like there was some expectation. Barrick definitely gets a honorary mention in this game number 2. Had a fantastic performance on that Yone going into the end, but I mean, there's only so much that you can do at that point, right? The damage was already done. The ship was already sinking. The holes were already poked into the bottom of the boat. It became a hard time for the side of UCI to find their way back in. I believe we should have a end game graphic as well to kind of get us sorted through it, but it was definitely, it felt like UCI was trying to fight, but they couldn't find the way.
Yeah, and I think it's a well-fought exit to the tournament. Unfortunately, this is the last that we'll see of UC Irvine until potentially the next tournament. They did just get eliminated by Bay State. But yeah, I think this is a very exciting team nonetheless, and I would expect to see them in the next tournament as well. Again, there's also that asterisk that they weren't playing with their starting bottom lane for this. So I think had they had all conditions met, they likely would have been a little bit more competitive in this series and maybe taken a couple of wins and moved on. But as it stands, congratulations to Bay State. They will have that rematch against Wildcard, and that's going to be a really good matchup.
Yeah, I real quick, I want to poke y'all's brains real quick. Before we send it off to going off air here, I want to start it off with you, Minka. How do you feel about the matchup? It's Bay State getting the rematch, the run back against Wildcard. How are you feeling their chances are?
I think just off of DMK's tendencies of preferring to play a lot of heavily farm champions, and Lee Sin being the exception, but he sometimes overemphasizes camps even on that champion. If you're playing a farming game against Griffin, you're already putting yourself at a disadvantage. It was very common and very well known throughout the entirety of PG last year, where he was playing with Zeus, where if you give him Viego, if you give him Graves, and you let him full clear 3 times, that he will outplay you at those specific fights, because he's very comfortable with the champions that he plays, and he knows the limits to a really high level. And if you have those resources in and you cannot crack the wildcard formula early, then you're gonna run into a lot of trouble.
Yeah. It's a bit weird to talk about because we did just watch Bay State win and Wildcard lose, but I definitely have Wildcard winning that matchup. I think their matchup against Bay State is a lot better than that of Golden Guardians, especially with Stixxay popping off today. That was something else. So I think they're going to have a better time in that matchup, and I would expect Wildcard to take the win. No offense to Bay State. Congratulations on the win, but I'm taking wild card in that one.
Yeah, me personally, you know what? Sage got me he's got me believing a little bit over here. He said spotlight on him now. So, you know what? I'm just excited to see exactly what they possibly can bring up. I want to see that chaos be honed into a sharpened blade. That being said, we do have to say goodbye to our guests as we say goodbye to stream. Miko, thank you so much for joining us. If anybody wants to tune in to find you, where do they do that, man?
Just follow me on Twitter. I typically drop I stream on a very inconsistent basis, and when I usually do, it's rather boring because all I do is just rabble on about the game. But if you want to
really selling me.
Yeah, if you want to listen to me rabble, I guess, which I don't particularly think it's the most enjoyable way to spend your time, then yeah, just follow me on Twitter.
I enjoyed my time doing that today. I don't know about you.
I love me, Miko.
Yeah, it was enjoyable for me too.
Make sure you follow him. Keep an eye up for Miko. And with that being said, that's it for us here on the Academy stream. We hope you all enjoyed and have yourselves a fantastic evening. We'll see you tomorrow.